Welcome to episode 17 of the Party Wagon podcast, and we talk about all things TMNT, past, present, and future. Today we're going to be talking about the present. Finally, it's here. I am your host, Brendan from the YouTube channel, Brendan's Rambles.
And I'm Eric from the YouTube channel, Know You Grow Up. And we've literally been talking about it since our first episode. Time has finally come. We saw Mutant Mayhem, and we get to talk about it.
Yup. I think we both saw it. Well, it's hard to say we saw it opening day because what the hell was the opening day for this movie? Some people saw it like 5 days before opening day. I saw it a day before opening day. It was a mess.
So did I. So I saw it on that Tuesday. And actually, I thought I ordered tickets for Wednesday because I clicked on like the early access and there wasn't any for my local theater. So then I just went to the opening regular times, bought the first available tickets, and I thought I was buying it for the second because it said that's what the opening day was. And Lacey asked me that on Tuesday. She's like, what time is the movie at tomorrow? I'm like, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's 8. I looked at them. I'm like, our tickets are for tonight. So if I wouldn't have looked at that, I would have actually missed it on Tuesday and been pretty damn bummed about that.
Yeah, that would have sucked. I mean, I guess you could have gotten a refund then. I mean, I only got my tickets, I think, like 2 days in advance. So they weren't hard to get a hold of. This wasn't like, Avengers Endgame, where if you didn't get your tickets, you're screwed. But yeah, I didn't see it. So usually a movie will open the night before its release date. Like usually if it opens on a Friday, it opens on that Thursday night. Yep. I saw it at 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a Tuesday. That's not even close to the night. So I don't know. This movie was already playing on like Monday and stuff in the theater by me. I could have seen it even earlier, honestly. I guess our first half of this video, well, not half, but our first segment, we'll quickly go over our general thoughts. And then the second segment, we'll get in depth about the movie, which will contain spoilers. So when the little April O'Neil thing comes up, if you don't want to hear spoilers, just stop listening. But I guess in general, just to start things off simple, thumbs up or thumbs down? What did you think?
For me, it was a thumbs up, and honestly, a pretty easy thumbs up. Like, I definitely have my nitpicks, but I don't know. I saw this movie, and I was like, man, that was a lot of fun. And then I was avoiding, like, listening to anything anybody had written, anything anybody was saying until I had saw it for myself. And I was actually shocked at how divided the community is, because it's not even like a soft divide. There's a hard line in the sand right now between people that love this movie and people that hate this movie.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention. I've purposely been avoiding the whole conversation. So that was news to me when you told me that. I can kind of see why, though. I'm going to say, I think what I told you when you asked me, thumbs up, thumbs down after I saw the movie. Mine's a thumb sideways, pointing slightly more up than down. I think I have a lot more nitpicks than you do because I'm always a bigger asshole about stuff like this. But I think what you said is 100% true. Regardless of my nitpicks, regardless of what I actually think of the movie, it is extremely fun. And I think, especially as a family movie, if you have kids, if you are a kid, you go with your family to see this movie, you're going to have a great time. You're all going to be laughing. You're all going to be, it's nonstop sensory overload from start to finish. So I think you're going to like it.
And that's honestly what surprised me more than anything. So like my anticipation for this movie, I'm like, all right, the animation is going to be cool. I'm sure there will be a couple cool fight scenes, but I'm just going to have to like wade through a ton of bull crap I don't care about with the plot. It's going to be stupid, have a bunch of little kid jokes and stuff in it. And people are trying to push it like it is very much directed towards Gen Z, but I don't know if this says more about me or Gen Z, but there was hardly any references or jokes that went over my head. Like, I was laughing the entire time pretty much. Like, every single joke resonated with me, and I'm 36 years old, so I don't know if it really is just dedicated to Gen Z. And I know I definitely have a different taste than most. Like 90% of what I watch is cartoons. Like I still watch a ton of kids shows. That's still just where my sense of humor is. Like I do have a really immature sense of humor. Like, but on the flip side of that, Seinfeld is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. And I would say that isn't a very, I guess, sophisticated type humor, but adult type humor. So I don't know. I can understand why some people would say that, but to me, the main thing I'm taking away from this now is, I've said this before, there's definitely two types of people who are like in our fandom community, whatever you want to call it. There's adults who are still into this stuff, and there's kids that have never grown up. And without a doubt, I feel like that's what's dividing the community more than anything, is I feel like everybody whose souls have been crushed by their adult life is not enjoying this movie, and everybody that's still very just fun-loving and childish inside seems to be enjoying it.
I think I'm in the middle there. But yeah, I think I would say it is probably largely made for kids. I mean, it's made for, and I want to say it's made for kids. It's made for today. It's made for the current time period. Because again, it is, for kids. There's some references in there I didn't totally get. Like, I don't know anything about Drake. Like stuff like Chris Pine. Like, I know who Chris Pine is. Like, I'll get it if they make a joke about Chris Pine and stuff. So it's mostly stuff that like adults will know from today. It's not like Fortnite jokes or something that like, or like Minecraft jokes that like, people who are like, 37 like me might be like, what? Like, we'll generally get what's going on. But yeah, I do think, because I mean, I was there in the theater. There was 2 big families with like a bunch of kids. And then there was a group of like preteens, like to the left of me, a big pack of them. And I heard first from the preteens, once the movie ended, they were like, wow, that was actually really good. Like they I guess they weren't expecting it. They weren't expecting to like it as much as they did. And I heard all the families of kids saying that was like the best movie ever and all this stuff. And I know a lot of kids probably say that at whatever animated movie
right.
They used to be. But I mean, I saw Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken in theaters like a month ago or 2 months ago now. And no kid said that at the end of that movie. So, yeah, so I think it does go over well with kids today. And I think, yeah, probably parents who have, like all parents have kids. I was going to say parents who have kids. all people our age who have kids and take them to see this movie will probably enjoy it. I think the people our age, like me, for the most part, who don't have kids and we're still going to see kids' movies, we're probably not going to enjoy it quite as much as the parents will, unless there are exceptions to the rule. Like you enjoyed it a lot, and I did enjoy it, but I think I have like maybe 50-50 like complaints and compliments for this movie.
So I think the reason I was able to enjoy it so much is because like I said, I had zero expectations, but also on top of that, I'm like, no matter what happens in this movie, it changes nothing. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people right now seem to be feeling like they need to be defending the 2007 movie because everybody's praising this movie now. I'm like, well, what about the 2007 movie? Like, blah, blah, blah. And same thing with like even the first movie, like legitimate news sites are writing articles being like, nope, sorry, the first movie's still the best. No fucking shit, it's still the best. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to see this movie and any of that was going to change for me. So once I went in with that mind state, I didn't really care what happened. Like, I feel like we'll get more into details for the spoiler section, but everybody's big tiff seems to be that the lore was changed a lot, which this is Ninja Turtles. The lore is tweaked every single iteration, and it's been like that since the beginning. The original story for Mirage was changed for the 87 cartoon. It was kind of went back to Mirage, but was still a little bit different for the 1990 movie. And it's always been like that. The origin always shifts, and IDW did the most radical shift yet. And I don't really know if that's a defense because IDW is also a very divisive series as well. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people's complaints just seems like old man yells at cloud to me, honestly. Like, I don't feel like I've seen a lot of good arguments for or against right now. I feel like a lot of people are really just like, I don't know. I feel like everybody is just taking this a little bit too seriously right now.
Yeah, I do think, again, that is a problem. Like when you have people who attach themselves to this fictional stuff their whole lives so much, and we put so much importance in it, we take it personal when like it's misrepresented in our minds, which again,
yeah.
I mean, the 87 shows a major misrepresentation of the comics. So to be fair, they've been changing it since the beginning.
Yes.
I do think that's part of the reason why Rise did so poorly is because a lot of older fans were like, this isn't my Ninja Turtles. What did you do to it and everything? Maybe this movie's going to end up like Rise with a fan base who is rabid and, out there to prove to the world that it's great. And then, again, I think Rise is good. I think this movie's good. Yeah, it definitely, I can see why it's divisive though, I guess, because people want like a new big screen iteration of the Turtles. They want see, in our heads, we like to think we had the best Turtles. We want kids today to experience what we experienced. So we think the only way that can happen is if they get a representation of the Turtles that is exactly the same to what we experienced. And now they're like, well, this is misleading. This is teaching kids all the wrong stuff about Ninja Turtles and stuff. And it's not that serious. I mean, I have my nitpicks about the lore too. I would say most of my nitpicks come down mostly to, I feel like most movies these days, I think this movie was being rewritten up until like a month before it released. Like, I feel like there were massive edits and reshoots and cutscenes and redubs, like new lines and stuff. I think they severely were reworking the story up until the end. And I have a lot to say about that in the spoiler section, but I do think it shows a little bit.
I think they do too. And I feel like a lot of times when movies do test screenings, which I knew they were doing for this, that's what happens. They take audience feedback and they try to tweak things at the last minute to get it more suitable to the demands as much as they can before it comes out. I think we see a lot of that in the promotional material, which again, I can't really get into too much until we get into the spoiler section, but
there's one big spoiler.
Exactly.
There's one big spoiler we're going to have to talk about because there's something I'm 100% certain they changed.
Big surprise to me when I went and saw it, there wasn't very many people in my theater at all. There was maybe like 10, 15 other people. And I think right now the movie's only pulled in about 50,000 worldwide, which is much lower than I was expecting. I know it's only on an $80,000 budget, but I don't know. To me, I figured there was going to be more butts in the seats than there was. And maybe it is because people are so divisive on Seth Rogen and just what they were hearing about this movie that it did kind of hurt it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was actually surprised because I saw the grossings. Again, I haven't been watching, reviews on it or listening to the conversation. I've heard bits and pieces here, but I checked the grossing last night, before we did the cast just to know what it made. I was shocked how low it is, honestly, especially with how early it opened. I kind of knew with the art style. Like, I think the art style is awesome. It reminds me of like, who's the artist who did all the artwork for like Hunter Thompson, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and stuff. It reminds me of that. Like, there's that crazy, just like lopsided nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool, and I support artists doing their crazy styles, but that is a choice you got to stand by, that a lot of people are going to be turned off by the art style, I think. So I think that might have had something to do with it. Like some general audiences that just want to see, clean Pixar kind of style CG and stuff, when they see something that insane looking, they might be like, oh, that's ugly. I don't want my kids seeing that. And it's an ugly movie. I think aside from the four turtles, everyone in this movie is hideous. Like mutant human, like they look like Ed and Eddie or something. Like they're just so like lopsided, one big eye, and like their face is like crooked and all, and like nothing is glamorized in this movie. New York is shown to be just as gross as it actually is, I guess.
Which, okay, to be fair, let's be real. That's how the world usually is. Most people are ugly. Like a very small percent of this population are good looking. And if you're good looking, you're probably famous because you're good looking. Like that doesn't really bother me at all. And honestly, I didn't even think about that till now, but you're right. Like it is a very like intentionally like, I don't know, bad art is the right word, but like that's what it is. The people are supposed to look off model and like unbalanced, and like there's no real world proportion to any of the characters. And I don't know, I love this art style. Like I knew that was going to be a strength going in, and it absolutely was. And if people don't remember this, but Into the Spider-Verse didn't do great in theaters. Yeah. That movie found second life when it came to streaming and digital and stuff like that. Like I could be wrong, but I don't even know if it broke 100K in theaters. I know it was significantly lower than what I thought it was. And Spider-Verse 2 did fathoms better because people had saw it, knew it was going to be good, and then they knew what they were in for in the second one. So that's why I'm kind of surprised, because to me, I felt like this was like where this type of movie or animation might be moving to, because what it does is it kind of plays on our nostalgia a little bit with like, I feel like it's CGI claymation is kind of how I see it. Like it almost looks like it's stop or choppy and stop motion, but all the action is really smooth, which I don't understand how you can make that work. How you can have that choppier art style, but when they're whirling their weapons, it's quick. Like it looks crisp and fast, and the fight scenes were great. And I don't know. To me, it's weird, and I understand art is as subjective as anything could be, but I was very drawn into the art style, and that's one area that didn't disappoint me. It was even better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, I think it looks phenomenal. I know in interviews, the crew were saying that they were kind of proud of that. Like the art direction of the movie, they were purposely doing what they tell you not to do in like art school and everything. Like when it comes to character design, they were purposely breaking the rules that they always tell you, do not do this, do not do that. They were breaking them all. And they said they wanted it to have a feeling like it looked like something a kid doodled in their notebook is like what they wanted to make the movie look like. Cause I guess it's supposed to be like, essentially this is what, older people like, I guess Rogan were fantasizing about when they were in school as kids thinking about, I don't know how old Seth Rogen is. I don't think he was a little kid when Ninja Turtles was big. Actually, I think he was like a teenager.
When he was in Freaks and Geeks, he had to have been at least 18, 19, and that was like late 90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, I'd say he's got to be at least 7 years older than we are in that vicinity.
Yeah.
I would probably park him in his early 40s.
So it's like he was, well, that's not 7 years older than me. I'm already 37. But
well, yeah, dude, you're going to be in your early 30s and 40s in 7 years.
I know. Well, I'm going to be in my mid 40s in 7 years.
No, don't say it like that. 42 is early 30. You'll be wait.
I'll be like 43,
shit. Yeah,
44.
that's bad math. Damn, 44. Fuck yeah. God.
But yeah, I don't think Seth Rogen was actually a kid when Turtles was out. He talks about it like he had all the toys and stuff. It's like, I mean, that's cool. I still do, and I'm 37. So I know there were teenagers who got into it too, but I don't think he was like a little kid. But regardless, I guess like it's supposed to feel like this is like a turtle story a kid would fantasize about and draw and doodle in his notebook as a kid or whatever. And I think the animation's really good. I think it's very unique. No other movie, even though it's doing what Spider-Verse laid down, no other movie looks quite like it because it has that doodle look to it, that like crazy look to it. And I think I just think the reason why, even though Spider-Verse did bomb at the theaters, it wasn't until like it won Best Animated Film at the Oscars they put it back in theaters, and then people started going and seeing it. But I do think still though, Spider-Verse, the character designs are more traditional. They're more marketable. Like Miles is a normal looking dude, and like Gwen is a normal looking woman and everything. Like you look at like Mutant Mayhem Rocksteady, and like that's a choice. That's a choice. And when you make choices like that, even though I support them, I support artistic freedom, and I support doing something outside of the norm. So every CG movie character doesn't just look like fucking Elsa. I do think like you have to be prepared for the fact that a lot of people who love movies with characters who look like Elsa and stuff are not going to want to see this movie because they're going to be like, oh, it's just some gross, crude thing. I don't want to see that.
And see, like, I think I'm desensitized because, I mean, South Park is one of my favorite shows of all time, and that is far and away one of the ugliest cartoons made ever, especially back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, it looks awful, but it was still hilarious. So I got past that. And honestly, like, a lot of cartoons are like that from back in the day. Like, I drawn a blank trying to think of any right off the top of my head, but like
Beavis and Butthead wasn't a looker. That was a pretty ugly show.
No, exactly. But to be fair, I feel like they are much more ridiculous looking because when the show turns into Daria, the Daria characters kind of look pretty normal. But I mean, even shows like Doug, like the characters look ridiculous. Like Ed, Ed and Eddie was a really good example, like you said. Like there are a lot of cartoons from our childhood that are just like intentionally drawn. Think of all the Adult Swim shows, like Home Movies and stuff was like one of the worst looking shows in the world. Like,
that was a fucking great show, though. I love that movie.
So, like, I don't know. Maybe that is just maybe I'm just very, very like I can see past intentionally bad animation if the story keeps me involved enough, but that's something you don't know until you actually do go see it. So if you are a person that judges a book by its cover, everything you're saying does make a lot of sense.
I think most people are. I think the difference with this than those TV shows is that for a cartoon show, it's not like a movie. A kid has to ask the parents have to buy the tickets, they have to go and actually go see if it's something they're interested in. A cartoon show, the parents will just turn on the channel and the kid will watch whatever the hell's on. So if Ed, Edd and Eddy was a movie in the late 90s and not a cartoon show, it probably would have bombed because no kids would have wanted to see it. But it being on TV, kids ended up watching it because it was there and they ended up loving it. And now it's like considered this classic. Whereas like also the adult stuff is like, it gets by, it doesn't need the animation for most people because it has the edgy humor and everything. They're there. Like South Park blew up because when it came out, everyone's like, oh shit, there's this cartoon where little kids are cursing and saying edgy jokes and stuff. And this kid's farting fire and everything. So I think adult cartoons have always gotten away with it a little better than kids cartoons. But I think even though there's a lot of kids cartoons today, I think are pretty fucking ugly. They still have that simplistic, like symmetrical, basic, like primate brain, like, oh, I can process what I'm looking at kind of look to them. Whereas Mutant Mayhem is just like, it breaks all those conventions. And it's just like, it's just insane. Like I said, it looks like the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas artwork. And I'm going to be honest, there are actually some times in that movie, many times, where the characters are so detailed and it's so dark, I actually can't tell what I'm looking at on the character. I don't know what they actually look like. Like I couldn't fully grasp what Wingnut looked like for most of the movie and stuff. And again, I think the art style is awesome, but I can see that kind of like being a deterrent for some people. I think some people, they just want their squeaky clean Disney artwork, and anything other than that is like, that's gross. I don't like that kind of thing.
So what you just touched on with the darkness, like that's what separates this movie from Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse is very like bright and happy and bubbly in its animation, and this is a lot more dark. Like it is pretty much, I think the whole movie pretty much is at night for the most part. It seems like it's always nighttime. Yeah, it's always night. It's always dark. That's where like when people are saying it looks like a kiddie movie, I do feel like I understand it's done in this silly drawing style, but it was done pretty like seriously. Like it does look, I don't know if gritty is the right word, but it is much more dark than the Spider-Verse animation was. And that's what I really liked about it. I like the darkness because that's what I liked about the first Turtles movie. Like, I feel like that's where they were kind of pulling that from, is everything was dark in that movie. Like everything was very poorly lit. So you pretty much just saw what they wanted you to see. And I feel like this movie really did draw from that a lot. And like I said, as far as like the animation art style goes, character designs, which we can get into, definitely have some tips, but I don't know. I really liked the art direction, and I like this universe as a whole. I like the way it looks. I think it's fun. I think it does well for what it's trying to do. It is trying to be a kid's cartoon. Like if this comes out, it's going to be on Paramount or Nickelodeon. That's where its home's going to be. And I feel like for everything else that I'm seeing right now, I know it was silly and playful and dumb, but it did have a little bit of edge to it, which again, we talked earlier, I don't know what a spoiler is, so I'm not going to say it right now. I will save it for our spoiler section, but I don't know. I was very happy with the art direction, the art style, and I have no tips there whatsoever.
Yeah, I think the art style is really good. I think it's it does, I think, what to a certain degree what a lot of modern animated movies do, or sometimes even live action ones that are just basically animated, like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, where there's like a contrast of dark colors and then like these ultra saturated like pinks and purples and greens and oranges and stuff that like I think a lot of modern movies do. I think this one has a bit more style to it, where they do a lot of times like Hollywood thinks like you either go super dark gray Nolan Batman or you go fever dream Spider-Verse. Like there's no in between for some reason anymore. I think this movie balances that a little better with the darkness. It has more darkness than other ones do. And Yeah, I would consider it gritty, even though it has a silly art style. I think it has like a gritty art style. It has kind of this like dark, satirical punk rock kind of art style. Like it almost seems like they're mocking the way people look in this movie with the art style and stuff. Like it seems kind of satirical. I could see this being the animation style for an adult comedy cartoon, actually.
So it definitely is, I would say, a little bit satirical, and it kind of, again, without getting into spoilers, like makes fun of itself and Turtles in a little bit, but like in a good way to me. Like I liked the satire, but the thing that I feel like it did do really well is it made New York feel like New York, which a lot of times in movies like this, it doesn't. Like New York just seems like it would be like a lot more happy and vibrant and colorful than it really is. But I feel like it made New York feel a little bit like grittier and tough and beat down, and especially like the rooftop scenes. Like I feel like those are key for any Turtles movies, and that did it really well. It looks exactly how it does in Spider-Man comics or old Turtles comics. Like I feel like you felt like you were in New York and not just a big city.
Yeah, they definitely did pinpoint New York, and you can tell that the director, I don't remember his name, but you can tell that like everyone who worked on the film is not only familiar with New York, but they have a passion for New York, which I guess I don't. Somebody has to, but yeah, you know, I can appreciate what's great about New York, and I've gone to New York plenty of times, but yeah, it definitely does feel like New York. I mean, I guess a lot of times when they're doing live action movies, it literally isn't New York; it's Vancouver usually,
right?
But yeah, they definitely. I think the first Turtles movie got New York pretty good. Whereas like the second one, Secret of the Ooze, made it more like the light beer version of New York City. It was like not even like the Coca-Cola version of New York City. And yeah, I think a lot of times they do that. Like Michael Bay's ones, they don't really make New York feel like New York. It feels like it's like Metropolis from Superman.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's how it feels when a city feels fake, because it feels like Metropolis or Gotham. Like this felt like New York City.
Yeah, it definitely did. And the Turtles really felt like kids who know about New York City and love New York City and want to be part of New York City. Like they felt like part of New York City, these kids.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you want to talk character design since we're kind of on like the art aspect, or more so like the tone? I guess we can kind of talk about it all. So let's go design since we're kind of talking about the art style. So I feel like that is definitely another thing that was probably off-putting for a lot of old school fans. It's like
for sure.
The mutant designs were very ridiculous, that's for sure. And Rocksteady, I will always go down. He is the most ridiculous of the bunch for sure. He is 90% head. That being said, to me, it worked in the movie. Like once I got a vibe for the movie and felt how everything was, I didn't give a shit about that after a while. Like I don't know. And I actually ended up enjoying the character designs more than I thought I was going to, just because the movie, they worked well with the movie, because again, it's not trying to take itself too seriously. It's not trying to be too edgy, but at the same time, like the mutants were still gritty and gross, and they looked like mutants. Like, I mean, I don't know. I ended up in, crap. There's a lot I want to say that's going to spoil. This is a hard one to talk about, but the overall, once I got into the movie, the designs weren't nearly as off-putting as I thought they'd be for the characters, with the exception again of the Turtles. They reminded me a lot of the 2007 Turtles, to where they look like they have more frog legs. I don't know what it is. Like their proportions, just like, I don't know. I want my Turtles to have a little bit more muscle to them, I guess.
Yeah, they could have been a little more muscly. I know they're trying to make like a realistic, like this is what an athletic high school kid would look like kind of body. But
yeah,
I mean, I remember when I was in high school, there were some jock dudes who were just fucking big. Like they were just big dudes. So high school kids can get buffer than the Turtles in this movie. And if they are supposed to be practicing ninjutsu and working out all the time, it's like they should probably be a little more muscular than they are in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, the designs didn't really bother me. Rocksteady's big stupid head didn't really bother me in the movie, because you don't even really notice it, because in the wacky, ridiculous looking world that they're in, it looks right at home. It doesn't look
exactly.
Out of place. I think the one design choice I wasn't crazy about that a lot of characters had, it's just a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with it, but a lot of characters like Superfly, April, and Ray Fillet, they had these like stubby limbs, like arms. They have a really stubby arm where it's like kind of shaped like a cone, where it starts off thick, then it gets really thin, and then they have like little itty bitty hands at the end, kind of like Santa from like Nightmare Before Christmas or something. But the arms never looked long enough. Like, I think the one that looked the weirdest on was Superfly, because he has the one big claw arm, but then he has this little ridiculous stubby arm, and it's like, this is the one guy who should just look straight up intimidating, and he looks like a clown with that arm. And I don't know, I just couldn't take him seriously with that arm. I don't know why, but
see, that's funny because I felt the exact opposite of that. Like, again, without getting too far into spoilers, like, Superfly was a great villain. Like, that was honestly the most shocking part to me. Is he's probably one of my favorite original antagonists of the last 10 years, probably. And I know it's hard to say. I mean, okay, yeah, crap, fuck, spoilers, god damn it. Okay, yeah, so I won't say that now, but yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, I thought Superfly was very intimidating. Like, I feel like every time he showed up, like, you felt that tension, like he was about to fuck shit up, you know what I mean? And again, it was the Ice Cube that I wanted. Like, I wanted freaking NWA Ice Cube, not Are We There Yet Ice Cube. And I feel like he wasn't quite all the way there, but that's another thing I feel like we can kind of touch on without getting into spoilers too much, is I feel like he kind of rode that line close to PG-13 almost, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was very surprised after watching this movie that it was rated PG. I felt like it probably rode the line almost as close as it could, because he was in a very adult type villain. I feel like he was not kidding at all. When Ice Cube was on camera, I was like, all right, like, shit is hitting the fan now.
Yeah, he's not only is he very intimidating. I will say, I do agree with everything you just said. I just think anytime you got to focus on that arm, it like ruined the moment.
I feel like you're going to ruin it for me now. The next time I watch it, I'm just going to stare at that little arm.
But yeah, like, Ice Cube was amazing. But not only was the character written like in a very intimidating kind of like more mature villain kind of style. He's very funny, but you know what I mean. But he curses so much in this movie. I was not expecting that many swears to be in this film.
No, I'm pretty sure he says damn 3 times, and I'm pretty sure he says damn 3 times, and I'm pretty sure he said ass 3 times. It was right around there. And every time I was like, I can't believe this stayed PG.
And you showed me on the soundtrack, one of the tracks is called Dipshits on the Roof.
Yeah, so the score for the movie and the actual soundtrack were a lot different, as I came to realize. So the actual soundtrack for the movie was produced by Trent Reznor, and it's kind of like very like, what do I want to say, like not psychedelic, but it's very like euphoric, trippy kind of music and stuff. And it's all the underlying music throughout the movie. And when they're on the roof, the sound that's playing is Dipshits on the Roof. I couldn't believe that when I read it.
I couldn't believe that when you showed me that too. It's like, I don't know how, I guess because it's not in the actual movie. I'm like, if they said that in the movie, that would have to like bump it up to PG-13, I think.
Yeah.
But
and again, it's completely instrumental type, like just mood setting music in the background, like very tonal. But yeah, it's if you look up the actual soundtrack of the movie, and it's got some pretty funny names in the title or for titles.
So yeah, I think the turtle designs, that's the big design everyone talks about. The mutants, I guess I'll just finish up my thoughts on the mutants. Some of them, like I said, they're a bit too busy. I couldn't even tell what I was looking at with some of their designs. Also, there's the problem of a lot of characters almost get no screen time. We'll talk about that more in the spoilers.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't really know spoiler-wise if I could touch on that one or not.
Yeah. But the turtle designs, I think, are the ones that everyone cares the most about. More than any other, like, superhero, it seems like Turtles designs make or break an iteration of the Turtles. Like Batman, everyone goes crazy about his design, but people are more forgiving of Batman's design if they like the movie or something. It seems like if the Turtles designs are not what people want, they won't even watch it. They're just like, screw this is not Ninja Turtles. And like you said, they're a bit too lanky, I think, but I don't know, their designs didn't bother me at all. I like how expressive they are in the movie. They're still very simple turtle designs. Like they're definitely very stylized. They don't look like how we've ever seen them before. They look like Hey Arnold characters or something, but they didn't do anything too crazy with them. Not like Michael Bay, where they're wearing like a whole garage on their back and everything. And like they're just, you know, 4 turtles wearing different colored bandanas and stuff. Like they're not like overdone designs. They're more, even though these aren't turtle designs I specifically love and want from now on, I think it's a step in the right direction of how people should do turtle designs, in that like keep them more true to traditionally how they looked, but use, you know, good character design skills to give them slightly different body builds and heights and facial structures and everything. And like you can tell all of them apart even if they were in black and white, these turtles.
For me, really, the only one that was still very off-putting is Michelangelo's head. Just looks bad. Like, other than, again, they even touched on it with a Hey Arnold joke, and we'll save that one directly for spoilers.
Oh, they did. Shit, I
yeah, they even
about
commented
that.
on it. And also, Hey Arnold is another good example of show with terrible character designs. I feel like that's a very great example of that for sure. And see, that's another area where I feel like you have to be in our age bracket to understand that joke that was said there, because even just half of it, Hey Arnold, that's a very age specific joke. So, and I feel like that is kind of like art style that they drew from. That's another movie or another show that took place in New York, and it was like weird modeling and stuff like that. So that's very interesting that you brought that up again. But for me, like I said, other than Mikey's head, I didn't really have a lot of problems. Leo, honestly, once again, looks good. Like, I feel like if you just isolate him and they were all just slightly tweaked off that a little bit, like, he is always a good character model. Like, for whatever reason, Leo always does look the most right. I feel like Raph, they went with the typical a little bit bigger trope, and to me, he kind of just looks a little bit more goofy and putty. Like, I feel like he almost looks more like a big fat kid than a big muscular kid. Like, I feel like he is very Cartman-like is kind of how I saw him a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Donnie had the glasses trope, and Mikey's a little bit shorter. But like I said, other than their muscularity, it didn't bother me as much as it went on. The mutants, I really, other than Rocksteady, I don't really have a lot of tips there. I know what you mean by like Wingnut was just like so sporadic and flying around so much that he, I don't know for sure, was very tiny as well. So that was a big difference. So it's kind of a lot harder to get a grasp for the character design. But as a whole, it didn't bother me as much as I thought it was going to, but I can understand why it does put a lot of people off. Like, you made the example with Batman, no matter who's making him, he typically stays close to home. Like, I feel like his design doesn't tweak too much. Like, even Batman Beyond, who is not technically Batman, like, I feel like that's like branched out for Batman. And Batman's had a lot of different kinds of suits and armors and stuff. So Batman has always been kind of malleable, but they all really do look very kind of dark and gritty Batman. Even the animated series was done in that like Art Deco style that looks a little bit grittier and stuff. So even the cartoony ones look a little bit gritty. But with Turtles, I feel like as of late, it just seems like everybody takes it in a different directions. And I feel like Turtles is like design-wise one of the most recreated brands of anything. Like Transformers has kind of had a lot. And that's really the only other thing I can think of that's had like a lot of makeover designs like that. Like, for whatever reason, Turtles, I've never really thought about that until now, but it does seem like, especially from 2012 on, they've really tried it. Every iteration really tries to be its own thing and tries to like make its own mark, and they're all throwing stuff at the walls, but just nothing has really stuck yet, I feel like.
Yeah, nothing stuck from the new ones. I mean, I still see the 87 Turtles everywhere.
It's the most recognizable. I can't see anything coming along that will ever be more recognizable than the 87 Turtles.
Maybe when we're like 70 or dead or something, like then like everyone will just be doing the 2012 Turtles or something. I don't even think so, though, because it's kind of like how, you know, black-eyed Mickey Mouse has never gone away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, even though everyone who you know, watched Steamboat Willie as a little kid is fucking dead now, probably. Even though that, it's like still he's remained like a part of, you know, pop culture history. So I think the original 87 Turtles will always be there. Because also, I mean, like so many kids today, they're growing up getting like reissues of the action figures and new merchandise with them on. And I see little kids with t-shirts of the 87 Turtles, and they're playing the new video games and the old video games, and they're seeing the show, which they just added to YouTube, by the way, the whole first season. But yeah, the 87 show is just it's always alive. Like during any iteration of the Turtles, that current iteration is always coexisting with the 87 iteration.
Yeah, which to me it makes the most sense because it was the most profitable version. I feel like it is the most recognizable. I mean, this could be argued, but I feel like amongst our generation as a whole, people are the most fond of the animated series, and it still appeals to kids. It still has that kiddie appeal, and I think it still does it better than any iteration has done it. I know like subjective taste changes over time, but to me, they will always be the most kid-friendly looking Turtles.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I know people could just say like, "Oh, it's because you're boomers" or whatever. But I think they are. I think because also, I mean, they appeal to adults because they were the first Turtles most of us got into, so we grew up and stayed into it. And they appeal to kids because they appealed to us when we were kids. They appeal to kids now. So it does seem like it's just the universally, I'm sure we'll get a comment or two of some people saying like, you guys just stick up for those designs all the time. You're being biased and stuff. But I do think, merchandise and brand recognition and all that just, proves the point, right? That I think they are the most famous, most recognizable, most merchandisable versions of the Turtles for kids.
And it definitely is a lot of bias on our part because if I just looked at the 2003 designs, I would say those are probably the best cartoon designs. I feel like and I know I've said before, look like they're trying too hard to be edgy, but that's really what I want as an adult now. And I kind of want it as an older kid too. I feel like those objectively are the best designs, but they're never going to be more popular than the 1987 cartoon. It's just never going to happen. Even if it is objectively better, it's just not as recognizable. And I feel like that does more work for things than people want to accept. That's why when people who are fans of the 2003 show, the 2012 show, in this new movie, they're like, when is NECA going to make my figures? When is NECA going to make my figures? Well, it might not ever happen, honestly. Like, yeah. I hate to break it to you, but like, there's people that are calling for Mutant Mayhem stuff, and it's like, whoa, that is going to be at the back of the line. Like, I know it has a lot of recency bias right now, but I guarantee 2003 still has a more rabid fan base, and even 2012.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be. I'm kind of surprised 2003 has never gotten even just the 4 Turtles, like a modern action figure. I guess sadly I like the 2003 show, but I guess sadly it just goes to show like the popularity of each iteration. That the 2003 one's not very high, I guess, on the ladder of popular Turtles and Turtles Czechoslovakia staircase of Turtles here. only people who follow my channel will get that reference. But yeah, I think 2012 would probably get a toy line before 2003, a modern one, but I don't think those characters would translate quite as well to action figure form. I don't know, that's a whole other discussion for another time. Let's get back to Mutant Mayhem. So I think we're ready to jump into just talking about.
Well, I think there's one more good thing we can talk about before spoilers, and that is the music for the movie.
Okay. I don't remember that much. There was a lot of pop songs in it. There was a lot of like big songs. I can't really remember right now what played. I know Donkashane because they're watching, a movie that we'll get into that has it in it. But I don't really remember what the other songs were. Oh, feel the rain on your lips or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen the movie will get why we're laughing at that one.
So the details we can definitely get into more in the spoilers. But for me, what I was taking out, there's a lot of 90s hip hop and even stuff that shocking to hear. There's a Old Dirty Bastard song, Shimmy Shimmy.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, was in it. And I mean, that technically it has a couple other people from
Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang in it, yeah. But hearing ODB in a Turtles movie, I was like, yes, something special is going on here. And also, we'll get into it in the spoilers. I have never appreciated the song No Diggity as much as I have until I saw this movie.
That's
so,
right. That was in there. I forgot.
That was the most standout, best place song, and shocking. We'll get into that when we get into the spoilers when I heard that. But and again, there's another music thing we'll save for spoilers too. But I don't know. I thought the score was really good, and that's the one thing that pretty much everyone on Facebook is unanimously in favor of, is that the score was very good, the soundtrack was very good, and I feel like that helped it a lot in my opinion. And I feel like that's another reason why I don't feel like it is necessarily targeted super at Gen Z, because again, I feel like it was a lot of early 90s or late mid 90s hip hop that I heard on there.
Yeah, I don't think any Gen Zers know who Blackstreet is. I don't think they're listening to No Diggity. But I remember hearing that song so much on Z100 back in like the mid 90s or late 90s. But I've never been like a big rap guy, so I didn't know a lot of the songs that were in there. So I guess if you were into hip hop in the 90s, this movie's probably like a treasure trove. But for me, I just, like, in one ear out the other, I didn't even recognize what most of it was.
Yeah, and again, as much as any white kid from a rural area is into hip hop, which is apparently a lot because we all were, but I've always just been into everything. I mean, metal, punk rock, like everything. Like, I've always had a very wide range of music. So that is something that I very much notice whenever I hear a movie. And I know Seth Rogen is a very big fan of 90s hip hop. So I feel like he probably did have his hand in that a lot, but that was something that I did really like. And then again, going back and listening to the actual soundtrack, like all the Trent Reznor like beats and stuff like that was, again, very, very surprising. But go check that out if you get a chance. Like, very hilarious titles, and you don't realize it, but there is just that underlying music throughout the whole movie, even when like the popular songs are playing.
This is April O'Neil, Channel 6 News, and you're watching the Party Wagon Podcast.
We've talked about everything we could. We've walked on eggshells for long enough now. Now it's time to really break down this movie, and we're going to talk about all the details and what we think. And this is just an open discussion. Not everything will be spoilers, but there will be spoilers left and right. So if you don't want to know anything about this movie and you just want to watch it, go watch it and then come back, and please still listen to the rest of this. I guess before we talk about anything else, this is how the movie starts. So we're just going to talk about him right away. Superfly. The movie starts off, I believe, with Superfly's origin story with Baxter Stockman. And he's making him a little baby Superfly. And he gets attacked by Utroms. And he gets attacked by people they want to steal. I was dead wrong. I thought like the Utroms were going to be good. They're actually the greater evil in this story. I think one thing we were right about, I think Cynthia Utrom, I think she is going to turn out to be the Krang for this universe.
Yes.
Because we'll get to the after credit scene later.
We can get into spoilers and talk about everything too. So, weird one for me. They never actually revealed anything Utrom the entire movie. They never showed the brain bellies ever, which I definitely thought they would have. I
thought so too. I thought that was actually surprising. You had this theory that like Cynthia Utrom would be like bad at pretending to be a human, but no, she's actually really good at it.
Yeah.
So it definitely seems like they're sowing the seeds. Like, people who are casually watching it will just think they're like FBI, MIB kind of shit. Whereas like Turtles fans will pick up on Utrom and be like, oh, we know what's coming in the future kind of thing. Which I don't, because they did some weird twists to the lore in this movie. So I don't even know if I do know what they're going to do with that. But yeah, they kill Baxter Stockman right at the beginning of the movie. Like, dude just dies.
Yeah.
And,
which is another thing that's a theme in this movie, is another reason I'm surprised it wasn't PG-13. So much murder in this movie. So much fucking murder. This movie has the highest body count by far of any TMNT movie ever, which again is shocking why people are saying this is for kids. because there were so many times like that dude's fucking dead. Like he is dead. He is not just knocked out. That motherfucker just got killed. And even in this first scene, when Superfly, he doesn't show his full form, but he ends up coming like half Superfly. He takes out this whole Utrom crew.
Yeah, he does. And he murders all of them. I mean, his whole like scheme is to basically murder every human on Earth, if not turn them into entertainment, like the end of Shaun of the Dead and shit, which I thought was hilarious. Where he's talking about like, oh, yo, mutants will rule the world. We'll keep around some humans just to like make them race on TV and stuff like that. But yeah, so I have to talk about though, because Baxter Stockman, he was advertised a lot. He straight up dies within like 4 minutes of this movie starting. But I don't think that's what originally happened. I think they reworked a lot of the story. I'm still convinced Superfly was originally going to be Baxter Stockman. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I think it might have even been something like maybe the baby Superfly did exist and some creepy like fusion of the two happened, like some body horror shit. And they just thought that was too dark a story for like the baby to take the body of his dad, essentially. Or I think there was something like that because, so for one, at the end when they're like, you know, writing all the actors and who they played, when it comes up for Superfly or Baxter Stockman, one of them, when it writes the actor, I think it was Superfly, it shows a regular housefly with Baxter Stockman's head, like as a little doodle on the bottom of the screen. And I think that's something they didn't remove that was originally part of the story. And the action figure, I mean, I think in the movie, I believe he's just shirtless Superfly. But for the action figure in the early promos, I think he always had the ripped like green sweater and white shirt underneath it, like on his body. He has the same hair as Baxter Stockman.
That's the most damning thing, I feel like, is the hair, because why would the fly adopt characteristics of Baxter? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing in how the mutations go that would be indicative of that. So that's where I think they were at one time the same character.
Yeah, I think because, you know, like Mondo Gecko traditionally had hair, not in 2012, but he traditionally had like mullet and stuff. He doesn't have any hair in this movie. So it's weird that Superfly not only has hair, but he has the same exact hair that Baxter Stockman had. I also think like it is a bit jarring. Again, the lore has totally changed, but it is a bit jarring. They would just kill off a character like Baxter that quickly and carelessly, which he could technically still be alive. We didn't see his body burn to a crisp, but his body was laying there fucking dead for a while. Yeah. So, I do think they were originally meant to be mixed, and I think they probably thought that was a bit too dark or something. So like, I just murder him. That's less dark. But I do really think with the hair, the ripped shirt, on the difference between how he looks in the action figure and in the movie, and even the fact that he has like one claw and then one human arm. He has like one fly arm, one human arm, whereas all the other ones are just animals. I do think kind of shows that he was supposed to be a human and a fly mixed originally. And I really think that little doodle of the Baxter Stockman fly at the end is like the most damning thing in my opinion. It's like, you left that in there. That's not in the movie though. So I don't know. I really think he was meant to be Baxter Stockman, and then like during production, like late in production, they probably changed it because either they thought it was too dark or they just thought that was too predictable.
And honestly, it could have just been, I mean, something that they're like, okay, this is too much exposition we have to throw in here, so we're going to throw all that shit out just to make the story move faster. Because I guess that's something we could have touched on in the spoilers, is the movie is only an hour and 39 minutes, and it's paced very well. Like, there is not a lot of downtimes or exposition crammed in, really, other than Splinter's origin story, I feel like.
If anything, it's too fast for its own good. I think I love movies being an hour and a half. I'm always saying I hate 2-hour movies, but I'm just finding these days, I guess people are just putting too much into movies that it's hard to pull them off in an hour and a half now. Like, you have so many characters, and I know the idea is like, we're going to get a TV show and like villain movies or whatever and all this stuff. It's like, I do kind of wish studios would stop sacrificing the quality of their first product to ensure more products in the future. I think like you might never get the chance to make those other products, so you want to make sure that first product is a solid, good movie that anyone can just watch over and over again and enjoy. And I do think it's a good movie, but I just think some of the pacing is so bad in the movie, and you could have cut like half the characters out of this film. There's way too many characters.
Yeah, so we'll definitely touch on that for sure, because that's one thing for sure they did do. They tried putting too many mutants in the movie, and that kind of ended up being, I don't know, bummer is the right word, but nobody other than Mondo really got their spotlight to shine. I feel like he's the only one of like the regular mutants that really did shine through. So are we jumping around? Or are we trying to go through like a little bit in order plot wise here? How do you want to do this?
I guess we can go in order plot wise.
Okay, yeah. So then we'll get to the mutants a little bit later then when they show up. So
yeah.
So after like the intro scene with Baxter, it jumps to the scene that was like teased and shown off, which is the rooftop scene where they're running. Everything looks hardcore and edgy and really cool. And honestly, it's definitely one of the best shots in the whole movie. And it's just like, I haven't seen the whole Bumblebee movie, but I've watched the intro and everyone's like, if they just made a Transformers movie like the intro to Bumblebee, everything would be great. And I feel like that's like the movie we all want, and they like teased it like that, and they immediately just go into the humor. But honestly, as soon as they like get into the humor, like I forget about the serious stuff and I easily moved on. And the dynamic of the brothers is where people like seem to be hating on a lot, because they say they're acting too kiddie, but other than me and my brothers being way fucking meaner to each other, that's exactly how it is. Like, they're just nonstop shit talking all the time. Like, they're never not on each other. They're always fucking busting chops. And I liked that about the movie a lot. It picked up right that. And that first intro scene where they're on the roof, I thought all of that was hilarious.
Yeah, honestly, I do wish the white eyes came back in the later actions. I don't think they ever did.
It just does so much, man. Like that is just a trope that works so fucking well.
Yeah, but I do think their dynamic is really good because, again, like, I was a little boy, I was a teenager, and like, you shit talk your friends and your siblings all the time, like just constantly, and I do think, I mean, obviously they are actually teenagers voicing them. And I do think that those teenagers had great chemistry, and they let them just like record in the same booth. And I heard like in interviews, they were even saying like they would hear the kids goofing around with each other when they're not recording. And they would say, what you're doing right now, do that the next time we record. Yeah. And I think that worked really well. I mean, everyone's going to have their preferences. You're allowed to not like it. But I think that's one of the strong points of the movie. I think the four turtles are the strongest point of the movie, in my opinion. I think, they made me laugh a lot more than I thought they would. The running milking gag made me lose my shit every time it came up. I don't know why.
I appreciated that too, man. I know that's one, like, this seems to be hit or miss, but I thought that was an excellent running gag right up to the point where they fucking get milked. Like, exactly.
There was a big payoff. But yeah, when they're on the rooftop, with anything that's like rapid fire jokes, like when you have like a comedy thing where it's just like every second of the episode or movie or whatever is just meant to make you laugh, there's going to be duds in there. There's going to be hits and misses throughout. So obviously not everything they said made me laugh, especially since I'd already seen that scene, the week before when they teased it. But it was good. I still laughed at it. And, I think they instantly did a good job where they start watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And, they don't really get like what being a high school kid's like. They're like, yeah, if you're in high school, you can just do that. You can get like a whole city to like dance with you and everything. Right. That was funny. But then I also like how quickly they were able to get you emotionally invested in the turtles and feel sorry for them and like see where they're coming from and be like, oh yeah, because they hit you with the comedy and like the dynamic between the turtles right away. So it's like you relate to them, like, oh yeah, these are real kids. I feel like these are real, actual kids. So then that you've established that these are real kids in your head, it hurts you when you realize like, oh wait, but what if when you were a kid, you were just closed off from the world, and you weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything, and even just walk down the street. And I think that they did a very good job in that intro of the Turtles, establishing their humor, establishing the relatability, and establishing the emotional connection that you should have with them.
So that was the part that I was the most surprised about with this movie, is that I was like emotionally invested, which again, I thought I was going to show there, or I thought I was going to go there. Just wait for the cool action parts, and I really wouldn't give a shit about anything else. But it did have good heart. Like, the stuff with the Turtles was good. The stuff with Splinter, yes, I know we'll get to that, and it has reasons why people don't like it, but it still has a lot of heart. Like, you care about Splinter. Like, you feel like he fucking cares about the Turtles. You know what I mean? Whether his decisions are right or wrong, like, he feels like a good dad, and that's what I liked about it. Like, I feel like that's why a lot of people had a lot of issues with the Rise Splinter, is that he just felt like he was like a piece of crap and like he wasn't a good dad to the Turtles. But regardless of their backstory, he was a good dad since day one, and I feel like that's the key. Like, yes, he's their sensei and their master, but he's also their dad. Like, they're a family. They're brothers. Splinter is their dad, and that is ultimately like the heart of the majority of Turtle stories.
I do think, no pun intended, they could have milked that a little bit more, because I think like there's a part where, not to jump ahead too far, we'll get back to like when they first meet Splinter, or when we first meet Splinter, but there's a part later on where like he tries to set up like this whole like party for them, and they just kind of leave to go meet April and chase Superfly or whatever. Or it's when they're first meeting Superfly, and they just kind of leave him. And it's definitely one of like the scenes with a lot of heart, but I do think they could have like, he's just kind of in the background all foggy, and they run out to the front, and then it cuts. I thought for sure they were going to cut into the sewer and show him like kind of sad or whatever, and like disappointed, like show him kind of like start taking the decorations down or something. So I think they could have milked the emotional things a little more. It's definitely not like Pixar emotional. Like, it's not going to try to make you cry.
No, it's not that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it is like, it's not going to be like the first 10 minutes of Up or something.
Never. I'll never watch Up just because I know I cannot get past that first 10 minutes. I have too much stuff buried that might come out if I watch that.
It's not like that at all. But like, it's emotional in the fact that you do want to see these characters succeed and see eye to eye and stuff. But yeah, Splinter, I guess let's just talk about Splinter. We're basically already talking about him. There's a lot to say about Splinter. His design alone is already a choice, because he just kind of looks like a fat old dad.
He looks very Chuck E. Cheese too. You know what I mean? Like, he looks very mousy.
Yeah. So he completely hates humans. There's no Hamato Yoshi connection. He's not Hamato Yoshi. He was not the pet of Hamato Yoshi. He was just a rat. And they do a joke where nothing liked him. Like, no other creature liked him. Because, in New York, the most hated creature is a rat, probably. Rats and cockroaches, which they kind of, I guess, poetically bring together eventually. Right. Which actually, I had a feeling at first, because he says the only friend he had was a cockroach. And then it gets stepped on, he eats it. Before it got stepped on, I'm like, oh, that's going to be Scumbug, and they're going to like reunite at some point. But no, it gets stepped on and he eats it. But I'm like, I guarantee there's going to be some callback to that with Scumbug, and boy, was there. But yeah, so they kind of highlight how, a rat, I guess, would feel if it was given human consciousness in New York City. But they do the Michael Bay thing where he has no ninja background. Whereas in Michael Bay, he stubbed his foot on a book that said how to be a ninja. This one, he watches movies that say how to be a ninja. He watches old kung fu movies. And it's hard to believe they would be ninja masters from that. I don't know. Like, I know it's a comedy. I know it's like a far-fetched universe, but it's the same way I felt in Michael Bay. It's like, well, how would they be like the most athletic, stealthy, like ninjas on Earth if all they learned is from was like some VHS tape from the 80s? Like, I don't know.
So this seems to be the biggest, one of the two biggest areas of strife with the whole movie, is the fact that they basically just rush their whole ninja origin into this. And I'm not going to lie, I thought it was fucking funny. Like, I thought that was a hilarious montage. I thought it was fucking funny. And that's the only thing that made me not really care as much. Because, again, I first and foremost looked at this as a comedy after I got into it. So at that point, I was already laughing and going with the flow so much that it didn't bother me. But if the comedy wasn't hitting for you, I can understand why that also did nothing for you. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it doesn't really bother me that much because it is a comedy. Like, that's just how I see this. Like, it's dumb and it's stupid, and let's be fucking real. This is goddamn anthropomorphic. I can't even say it 'cause I'm so fucking worked up. Anthropomorphic animals doing fucking ninjutsu. Like, it's all ridiculous. It's all fucking ridiculous. Like, how serious? It's Ninja Turtles. It was made from satire to begin with. The whole point of Ninja Turtles is fucking satire. Like, it's satire. It was satire from the start. Even though Mirage is hardcore and gritty, it was supposed to be stupid from the beginning. They're fucking turtles that do ninjutsu. It's already insane. So I was okay with it. But I get why it's driving people nuts. I do. But to me, I thought it was fucking funny.
I found it mildly amusing. I didn't find it funny enough, I think, to justify. I think the thing is that, like, this movie really wanted to focus on the teenage aspect of their title.
Yes.
It really wanted to focus on the mutant aspect of the title. It even put the word mutant in the title of the movie twice, which is kind of redundant. But I feel like the ninja part is, like, painfully absent for most of this movie. I feel like they're really not ninja at all. And traditionally, that's kind of the most important aspect of their backstory is the ninja aspect, the feud between like Hamato and Oroko. It's the Foot Clan feud, you know, like ancient war from Japan brought to modern day in New York. And, you know, Splinter's always had a connection to that. And in this one, they're just a bunch of random dopes who happen to get mixed up in this story. And I get it. It is funny. And this movie is in no way trying to replace the old versions of the Turtles. They are not saying, like, this is the new definitive Turtles. They're like, this is our wacky spin on the franchise. But I do just think that is kind of the foundation. That, to me, getting rid of the whole Foot Clan feud, getting rid of which the Foot Clan, you know, we'll talk about them later on, but getting rid of all that, getting rid of the whole ninja backstory, the Japan backstory of the Turtles, to me feels like getting rid of Batman's dead parents or getting rid of Krypton. Like, it feels like that is those are the circumstances that make the heroes. And to get rid of that, it's like you could basically just make them anything at that point, because Batman becomes Batman because his parents are killed. Superman becomes Superman because Krypton blows up and he ends up on Earth. So I feel like the Ninja Turtles became the Ninja Turtles because of the ninja feud going on with their master. So I do think, personally, while, you know, I'm not losing sleep over this, I don't really care that much. But watching the movie, it does, like, lower my appreciation for, I guess, this iteration a little bit more when I feel like maybe that was an aspect that Seth Rogen never cared about. He always focused on the crazy mutant and the teenage aspect more. But I think if you are going to adopt a pre-existing IP that has been around for almost 40 years, you do have to a certain degree, like, maintain its roots. And I think that's why a lot of people do not like this backstory, much like how, you know, everyone flipped out when Michael Bay did that too, which I do find shocking that was so hated when Michael Bay did it. That was ballsy for them to do it again.
You made a prediction. You said this movie is going to be our mutant movie and our next movie is going to be our ninja movie. And this is where it's getting too hard for me to really stay where I want to stay, so I am going to jump all over first. So
that's fine.
The end credit scene, we do get our Shredder tease, and that's where I feel like the next movie is going to be the ninja movie. I feel like you were dead fucking on there, and I feel like that will play more into the ninja stuff once Shredder and the Foot Clan show up. I think you were 100% right there in that end credit scene. Fucking, I feel like you were dead on with that one. And I get that that's where a lot of other people are thrown off too, is that there wasn't enough ninja stuff in the movie. And I do get that, because my major complaint, just like with almost any major complaint of a Turtles movie, not enough action. That was my only complaint, my only strong complaint. There could have been way more ninja fighting for sure. And that is one area where I feel like they did miss a little bit, was the ninja aspect. And I hope in the sequel or the other iterations we do get more of that, because again, with this art style, there's so much you can do. The fight scene in the middle, which again, we'll save that for when we actually do get there chronologically, is fucking amazing. Like when they actually are doing their little bit of ninjutsu they can do, it's pretty fucking cool. And that's kind of how we can get back on track here to like the plot of the story is, well, first of all, we skipped over the joke that I was saving, which is the Hey Arnold mixed with Stewie joke. So when they're up on the rooftops, so we'll get back to the plot here. Okay, so when they're up on the rooftops, they're throwing ninja stars, trying to hit the watermelon or whatever. And one of them makes a joke where like, Michelangelo, your head looks like Hey Arnold had a baby with Stewie. And like, again, that's super specific to our age group. But that's when a ninja star goes array, hits April in the head, and that's when they meet up with April. And
yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. So that's when they meet up with April. And this is another line of jokes that I really appreciate, because Raph's just like, fuck it, we hit her in the head, let's just bail. Who fucking cares? Because she's just bitching at him nonstop. Some guy steals her moped, and Raph again is just like, so there's nothing we can do about this, right? Let's just get out of here. She can do it.
So you want to get a pizza? Yeah.
Right. So that's when they go and end up trying to save her moped. They end up getting in their first scrap. And that's right off the bat where it's like, okay, this is going to be their first fight. And it just starts, it's just silly, because they're like, yeah, we're training, but we don't really know what we're doing. And they kind of accidentally win the fight against these guys.
Yeah. I think like it's a combination of like they get lucky and also they don't realize how formidable they actually are.
And that's what it is, because again, once they start fighting after that, they have a lot of confidence. But it is the same way, like jacking off doesn't take away your virginity. So you can jack off all day, but the first time you have sex, you're going to be fucking nervous. Same thing with fighting. You can practice fighting all day, but until you really get in a fight with someone else, you never know what a fight is going to be like. You know what I mean? So that was very good that they weren't just like, oh, we've been training, because they're teenagers, they're kids, and they were going to fight against adults. So that's, I think, how that really would have went in that situation.
That's a beautiful analogy you just made.
I stole that from someone else. I didn't make that one.
Oh,
up.
Really? I've never heard that one before.
It's a powerlifting analogy. One of my favorite powerlifters always used to say is, because you're not a real powerlifter until you compete in powerlifting. You'd always say that. So
okay. That's a good one, though. But yeah, I think when the action is going, it is really good. I think you're right. Actually, I didn't really think about that. There's not that much action in the movie, though. There's obviously more at the end, but we have a subplot that goes on throughout the whole movie that I was actually very surprised was in there. I was not expecting it. That Leo was like desperately in love with April, which I don't know, just kind of caught me by surprise. I've never seen them. Even in the past, you know, like when Mike was attracted to April, he would just be like, whoa, she's a babe and stuff. Then they had like Donnie obsessed with April to like an annoying level in the 2012 cartoon. Yep. But Leo's never been like that. So it was kind of surprising that they went that way. And again, no pun intended, they milk it a lot. They go really far with it, even up to the after credit scene, the mid credit scene. I don't know if it was necessary, honestly. I feel like it didn't really actually go anywhere, but
no, I feel like it really was just kind of extra like character development that they were trying to cram into Leo, because just like the 2007 movie, I feel like Leo is without a doubt the main character of this movie. Even more so, I feel like the 2007 movie is kind of Raph heavy too, but this one without a doubt, like this is Leonardo's journey, I feel like, for the most part. And I feel like that's what it was it wanted to cram like more angsty teen, like, I don't know if drama is the right word, but like that's I think what it was trying to hit on, because again, like they're clearly up on their pop culture. They're up with modern movies, and I feel like they probably have watched like a bunch of like cheesy romantic comedies and stuff like that. So like something like that probably would resonate with one of them from all the movies they were like. One of them is gonna end up being the hopeless romantic, and I think that's what it was. And it's kind of like this instance where it's the first girl he sees, so that's who he falls in love with type of situation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That like he's never actually like talked to a girl before, so the first one that actually responds to him is like, holy crap, I'm in love with this person. Like it's just like instantly like, but yeah. So what I don't even remember what happens after that. The movie's just all over the place.
So from there, that's where they kind of like link up with April, and then she is on this mission to figure out what's going on with all the stuff disappearing. I think she's trying to figure that out.
Oh yeah. And is that when she takes him to her high school? Is that another night? I think there's kind of like a montage, I think, where like they just keep meeting up with April. It's been a week since I saw the movie, so like forgive me for not remembering.
Yeah, because again, like most movies, I feel like the second act is the worst act, like in most movies. And again, it wasn't terrible for me. It is where because they meet up with April, they start like running down all these like criminal organizations, and they're trying to like eventually pinch someone to get someone to squeal, I think. But that's when we get that amazing, the best part of the whole movie, the fight montage with no diggity. And dude, that scene is fucking amazing. Like the best shot in the whole movie is when they're going through that slow motion pan and it's switching between each turtle, but they're in the same exact motion. Like that was fucking amazing, man. Like that was a beautiful piece of movie making right there. That
fight was amazing. I thought that was definitely the standout for the movie. Honestly, it's considerably better than the climax of the movie. Again, they rush things a lot. So you're already pretty well into the movie by that point. You're probably about halfway through the movie when like they're really like working with April and meeting with her every night and stuff. And yeah, there is the part where she takes him to the high school. But like I'll get back to the high school in a second, but by the time they finally first meet Superfly, it's like more than halfway into the movie. So we're definitely gonna have to talk about how rushed the mutants are in a minute. But anyway, when they're in the high school, we find out kind of, I guess, why April was more willing to talk to the turtles than other people, vaguely. So it's revealed that she's made fun of in her school all the time. And it's solely because she tried to be a news reporter for like the morning news for the school, and she got camera shy and she vomited everywhere. Like she's vomiting for like 5 minutes, like just projectile, like The Exorcist, just for 5 minutes. It's like neon green and everything. So everyone calls her, I think, Barf Girl or something. Puke Girl, yeah. So it's like, okay, she was an outcast because.
And for the record, dude, that is high school in a nutshell, man. You fuck up once, your shit's over, dude. You are gonna be remembered for that one fuck up for your entire existence.
I mean, I don't know what I did, but in kindergarten, apparently I already fucked up because I was hated from kindergarten to when I graduated high school. So I was that kid. So I didn't have to worry about that because like every mistake I did since I was like 5 was recorded by everyone. So I just got used to it by the time I was in fucking high school. But but I know it does happen to kids in high school. And there was a poor kid in my class, my school in high school, that he sat on a pencil and it went up his ass and like into the rectum, not even like nicely like up the hole, like it went sideways into his, and he was made fun of for the rest of the time he was in high school.
All right, if that isn't already bad enough, you already had a pencil go up your ass.
Yeah.
Now you have the emotional trauma to deal with after, dude.
I will not say his name.
Thank God I went to a small high school. Like, thank fucking God, man.
I will not say his name just in case by some small chance he happens to see this. But but I guess that was kind of supposed to explain why she talked to the turtles, but it's more so like she talked to them because they threw a ninja star into her helmet.
So basically just kind of tie everything back together. So the reason April is so willing to work with the turtles is because she kind of became an outcast, and she wants to basically get to the bottom of this story so she can kind of be a hero to kind of win her credit back. And the turtles are kind of in the same boat. They've had it driven into their head by Splinter that humans will always hate them. No matter what they can do, they're going to be hated by humans. That's basically like the driving factor of their origin story, is that they're always going to be outcasts. Nobody's ever going to like them. So they have to do this huge grand gesture, save the city, and that's when people will accept them and they'll become the heroes they want to be, and then they'll get to go to high school. Basically, is what it all boils down to. So that kind of gets brought up in the middle, and that's kind of like the punchline at the end, is they realize they're doing all this for the wrong reasons, that they should really be doing heroic things because it's the right thing to do, not because it'll make you famous. Same with April. She should really get to the bottom of the story because it's going to save people, not to give her the credit she needs.
Yeah. I do feel like April's feels a little more like she doesn't have to do as much work on herself. Like, it feels more like she just does what she always wanted to do, and then she just gets the response she wanted. But yeah, I guess she did it to save the mutants, because everyone in the city thought the turtles were evil, and she felt like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, never mind. So speaking of the mutants, they get introduced, like I said, probably like halfway, maybe even later in the movie, and we finally meet Superfly and the mutants. There's a ton of them. Let me just see if I can remember all of them. There's Superfly, Bebop, Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, Ray Fillet, Scumbug, Wingnut, Leatherhead. Am I missing someone?
Attila.
Oh, Genghis Frog. Yeah.
Or Genghis. It's Genghis, yeah.
Genghis, yeah. It's easy to forget him because he might have like a line in the whole movie.
Which, okay, first of all, again, this is what we're ultimately going to get into. None of the mutants get enough play. They tried cramming way too many in, and none of them get enough lines, but he's fucking voiced by goddamn Hannibal Buress, Animal Furnace, and he gets like no lines. He's like one of my favorite voices ever, and I think he talks twice.
Yeah, that's the problem, is like they get all these big named actors to do all these characters, but these characters only have like 3 lines of dialogue, and Mondo gets the most because
far
like
and away, like he almost has like character, sort of.
Like we predicted, they did that because Seth Rogen made him like the stoner character, basically,
right?
Which we predicted months ago. And I liked Mondo. He was funny. I think they kind of made a hybrid of Mondo Gecko and Rock and Roll Mondo, the original action figure, because he has the guitar that he.
Well, he's very hippie-y. Like he's almost more hippie-y than classic stoner, I feel like.
Which is like Rock and Roll Mondo was a hippie. So he came with that same, like, wooden guitar and everything. So I think Seth Rogen, even in an interview when he was talking about like, oh, me and my friends, we used to love the old Turtles toys, he instantly just went on to Mondo Gecko. Like, Mondo was so cool. We loved that he had a roller skate on his tail and all this stuff. And they put that in the movie.
That was a nice touch, right?
Yeah. So Seth Rogen clearly does not care about hiding his bias for Mondo Gecko. Clearly that's his favorite turtle character, and he just put him everywhere in this movie. But I mean, if I saw as a little kid, it would have blown my mind that Mondo Gecko was like a major supporting character in this movie. But so we get all those mutants. Superfly is, he's the leader. He's the main villain. We kind of talked about him already, both in spoilers and non-spoilers. I'm not going to waste too much time with him, but he's really funny and he's really cool. I like him a lot.
Yeah, and he's really intimidating. Again, up to this point, like, he's basically known throughout the city as like this hardcore underlord, and that's where they think they get down to the point where they're like, all right, we got this situation pinched, like we're gonna figure out who's doing all this stuff, and then they're like, we're mutants, we're gonna kick their ass, and it ends up being all these mutants, which is their first time seeing other mutants, and their origin story is essentially the same. Like, once they got turned to mutants, so they were all created by Baxter. They all kind of developed after Baxter was killed. Superfly like raised them, And they essentially wanted to go out and try to do the same thing Splinter and the Turtles did, which is just be in public, and it didn't work out for them. So they're taking it a step further than Splinter, where Splinter is just hiding. Superfly wants to essentially turn everybody or everything into mutants and kill and enslave all the humans.
Yeah, so in this world, there's no humans being mutated into mutants. It's only animals turned into mutants. Which again, I think was changed at some point during development, because I definitely think Superfly was supposed to be Baxter. But yeah, that's like his master plan. And all these other mutants are kind of just like going along with him. They're just like, oh yeah, whatever he says must be true. I guess they've never heard like any other voice of reason.
Well, they really haven't heard any other voices. Like they've pretty much just been, they know what they've been told by Superfly, essentially.
Yeah, like Mondo says, they has gots to go. So, so many of these mutants, we just got to talk about this now, are nothing. Like they barely have speaking lines. They barely have screen time. Bebop and Rocksteady barely have screen time. And I can kind of understand Bebop, who actually I think got a little more screen time than Rocksteady, a little more lines, because like Seth Rogen's voicing him, he's already going to be on set anyway. But you got John Cena to voice Rocksteady, and he has like 3 lines in the whole movie. And that was just really shocking. And Bebop and Rocksteady, like, they were promoted as like the 2 main underlings of Superfly through all the merchandise and stuff. They are no more significant than like Ray Fillet or Leatherhead or anything in the actual movie.
I feel like merchandising wise, they're the 2 most recognizable like villains, so it makes sense why they would go that route. It makes sense why they would get action figures, because again, they're Bebop and Rocksteady. They're with the cartoon, they're as recognizable as it gets. But a lot of people are complaining that Bebop and Rocksteady ended up being good guys. But again, getting back to the teaser we saw, without a doubt, what's going to happen is Shredder is going to show up, and then they're going to end up working for him. And I feel like a lot of the mutants probably will in the end. But without a doubt, that's what's going to happen, because again, we're dealing with very ignorant mutants here. Like they only know what they've been told about the world. So they're still going to be very malleable. And I feel like Shredder is going to come in and he's going to offer them all this power and glory, and they're going to end up being corrupted, and they will be bad guys. Maybe,
yeah. Actually, I was thinking at the end, like, how are they going to do this? I get the feeling they're going to, but they do focus on the only personality trait of Bebop and Rocksteady now is that they're angry all the time. And like that's it. That's their whole characters. Like they're just angry. And I guess that can like lead into them, you know, being manipulated. Like, oh, you want a way to vent your anger? And then like, but yeah, so many of the mutants, they're just one note. Ray Fillet sings. That's his character.
Right.
That's What's Up from Four Non-Blondes. That was a big song in the movie, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is weird because that's already very synonymous with He-Man because of the whole meme that came out in like the 2000s where he's singing it. So it's kind of weird that Ninja Turtles tried to own that when it's so synonymous with He-Man that they've literally made like Motu Classics figures based on that fan music video. So it's like it's weird that they tried to own that when like an 80s cartoon already kind of owns that. But I mean, I thought it was funny in the movie. But yeah, so many of them. Just Ray Fillet sings. Genghis Frog is small. Like they have like one joke each of them. I think Wingnut gets more lines than most of the others, but I can't really say what her personality is particularly.
Right.
And Leatherhead, who's also, I assume, female now. They both sound very. They're not doing like male voices. They sound very.
Yeah.
female.
So because Leatherhead was the girl from like the 5-year engagement.
Yeah.
Rose, whatever, and then I can't think of the girl that plays Wingnut, but she's in the TV show
What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, which she's fucking, that show is hilarious. So that makes sense why she got to play the Bat, and probably why they made her like a vampire bat too. But I feel like secondary characters, she definitely does have the most lines outside of Mondo.
Yeah. Leatherhead now is like Australian. Like she even has like the Crocodile Dundee hat with all the teeth on it.
So also it's a croc and not an alligator too. I'm pretty sure.
So now she's like an Australian croc instead of a Miami or like a Florida gator. And I have to say it was a little confusing at times because I don't know where the actress who does Wingnut is from, but she has an accent too.
Yeah.
And there were times where I couldn't tell who was talking, actually. Because like you just see a bunch of crazy mutant images on the screen. You can't really like see what you're even looking at. And I'm just hearing a female Australian or British accent. Obviously, Australian accents sound different. Like when you listen hard enough, you can tell, okay, that's Leatherhead. But the movie's so frantic, they just say like a line, like a couple words. And I'm like, wait, who said that? Do they both have accents? It took me a while to realize they both had accents. And yeah, they I guess they're female now. They didn't really do anything to make them look female, but I'm assuming they are because their voices are very female. It would be very weird to say that Leatherhead is a dude, I think, with that voice. Yeah, the mutants just, they all have like this one personality trait, and that is the whole character. I don't even know where the hell they got the Ray Fillet singing thing from. The voice actors as singers. Like, I just sing, and it's like, well, when the hell did Ray Fillet ever do that? But I don't know. I just feel like the mutants were a bit wasted, and to me, it feels a bit cheap because I feel like they were purposely teased and wasted so that you'd want to watch more content about them to learn who they are and give the studio more money, essentially, down the road. And it feels like you're watching a trailer for all these characters rather than actually getting to know who these characters are.
The Seth Rogen interview that I just saw, he talked about how, like, when we were kids, we all played with the action figures, and like that's what made them seem like they were so much bigger than they were. And then you'd watch the cartoons and they'd only show up once in a while. So I feel like that's why he wanted to do that. I feel like it was a very heavy nostalgia play. And I would imagine that's probably a lot of the stuff that got left on the cutting room floor, probably is a lot of stuff with the mutants, because I would imagine they probably had a lot of, like, I can't imagine they brought in John Cena to have him record 2 lines. You know what I mean?
Right?
Like, that seems very shocking that they would get all these people. Like, I feel like there probably was a lot. And I bet that's a lot that did get cut out.
I think so. I mean, even just the idea that, like, we were speculating about, like, Bebop's tattoo that says, wow, you came up with a great idea that you probably wrote Mom.
And it never even touched on it, exactly.
Yeah. And I thought that, like, the joke you came up with, I thought was ingenious. I thought was actually going to be in the movie. And it wasn't. Like Bebop, like, all of Bebop and Rocksteady's lines basically equal to, like, hey, what are you doing? What do you want? That's it. That's like all they say in the whole movie. And again, it's really just Mondo Gecko who talks, like, who has consistent lines. Wingnut the most after him, but other than that, like, I think Leatherhead might have like 3 lines. Genghis Frog is like 2. Ray Fillet, I guess if you count how long he sings for a couple scenes, maybe he has a little bit more. But I don't know. Like they just. I get you can get that feeling of like, okay, I think I said this in an earlier podcast, the feeling of you just grab a handful of toys as a kid and you just play a story with those characters. I guess it kind of feels like that. But at the same time, I do think from just a movie standpoint, from a Turtles nerd standpoint, that's very fun. But from a standard movie standpoint, like this is someone's first Turtles movie or something, or even they're just a casual and they don't know who the hell freaks like Ray Fillet are. That's just going to be overwhelming to them, I think. And it's going to seem like a little sloppy because you introduced a bunch of characters you did nothing with. So it kind of feels like, why did they get movie posters and all this stuff? Like, why were they so hyped up and they're getting action figures when they did like literally nothing in the movie? Like, they're basically the equivalent of like those cryptids from the 2007 movie.
Right.
Like they're really nothing. And they're just there so that Superfly has a gang. And so that Turtles fans can point and say, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know that guy. And yeah, I do think the mutants, unfortunately, were the most rushed part of the movie. And like you said, I think a lot got left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, so that's definitely my number 2 gripe, is that the mutants did not get enough development, screen time, lines, whatever, however you want to say it. Like, no, or lack of action is my number 1, and then that's my number 2 for sure. Like, those I feel like are the 2 biggest tips. Is they, like you said, each one of them had their individual poster. They're like, look who's playing this person, and then they had 2 lines. So that was a very big bummer. And like I said, freaking Hannibal Buress, just out of all of them, is just, I wish he would have had more lines. That dude is hilarious. I love him so much. So hopefully, in whatever kind of sequels, because I know we're going to get a sequel movie, we're going to get a series. I don't know if it's going to be a mini series, full series, whatever it is.
They said 2 seasons, so
2 seasons. But season can mean a lot of different things. A season can be 6 episodes these days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it could be 24 episodes. You never know what a season's going to be. So hopefully we do get some of these actors back here to do something with it. Maybe they did sign on longer term contracts, but that was kind of one of my like initial thoughts is like they had this huge cast of voice actors. Are they going to be able to get them back for things like an ongoing series? But maybe like each character will get their own episode, how they did in the 87 cartoon. And maybe we will get like a spotlight on each one of those characters. But regardless, I dead on like one of the biggest negative points of this movie is I feel like they could have definitely done more with the slew of great characters they had to work with.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think like to a certain degree they were wasted. And I mean, that being said, I think even though we've praised Superfly, he's barely in the movie. We get like the first scene when they meet him, which kind of turns into the bowling alley scene where they're all hanging out with the mutants and meeting them. And that was a fun scene. I think it's hilarious the way it changes so dark and they're not ready for it though. Where like you can feel how terrified the turtles are when they realize what they stumbled into, because they're all having fun. Mike and Mondo are bonding like. But the air where the bowling ball comes out, they're like, check this out. Blah, they put their mouth over it and stuff. And they're just goofing around. They're all like, having fun. Raph's bonding with Bebop and Rocksteady, which is weird for someone who has it ingrained in my mind that Bebop and Rocksteady hate the Turtles. And then all of a sudden they're all having fun and Superfly's like, just clues them in. Like, so you're on board, I guess, that you're going to murder all humans on Earth and turn every animal into a mutant. And the turtles love humans. They love like human culture. Their only friend right now is a human, and they don't want to do that. And they're not really into murder. So, but Superfly basically tells them like, you're either with us or we're gonna kill you. And the turtles have to like, you feel like that sinking in their stomachs. They're like, oh shit, what did we get ourselves into? They have to like play along and go back on their words and everything. But then we get that with Superfly. And then they kind of like turn on them immediately, and there's a chase scene with like the mutants and the turtles. And then there's like one more scene of them when they're all like regrouping all the mutants the next day. And then Superfly turns into the giant Superfly. So there's like kind of only 2 scenes, one very elongated one, but there's like 2 scenes really with normal Superfly before he turns into like the giant monster Superfly. So that was a bit weird to me that like they rushed it so much that even the main villain really didn't get that much screen time.
The more we talk about it, the more I want to see like a director's cut of this movie. Like I know I say I hate fucking long movies, but with Turtles, I would like to see like a 3 hours director cut to see what did get left out, because I would like to see more of Superfly, period. Like I said, I feel like he was far and away the strongest character in the movie. Whenever he was on screen, like you were fucking tuned in to what Superfly was saying because it was fucking heavy. The bowling alley scene reminds me, like, have you seen like every South Park episode?
No.
Okay, have you ever seen Woodland Critter Christmas?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so dude, it's this like, it's an end. I think it's one of the last episodes in a season, so it's just a really random one. But it's basically a story they're telling where Stan goes out in the woods, finds all these woodland critters, tries to help them save their Christmas. And then eventually he finds out that they worship Satan, and then they have a blood orgy and start fucking each other. Like that's exactly what that scene reminded me of. Just YouTube that scene and just watch that. But that's exactly what it reminds me of. It just goes from just light ha 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 to, oh man, we're about to fucking take over the world here. So yeah. Like it does do a good tonal shift. And again, that's where I was caught off guard by this movie, is that I was like feeling things as I was watching this, because like you, I was like, they're having a good time. And I'm like, okay, Superfly's making it feel fucking heavy right now. Like this is, it's feeling like this went from fun and games to like, I want the turtles to get out of here before they get in trouble. Yeah. So, and it's also where we get a lot of like, so they go back, they kind of have their like down moment. This is where they have like their kind of falling out with April here too during this, if I remember right.
I think so, yeah. They always need the falling out of the allies in every movie now.
Dramatic downfall of the second act, typically, before Superfly. So they end up they go back to the factory, wherever Superfly and all the mutants are, and they end up convincing all the mutants that they're like, hey, Superfly is actually bad, and like all humans aren't terrible. And like that's basically the message that they've been trying to drive throughout this whole movie, is that all humans aren't bad, we can be accepted. And eventually all the other mutants get on board with them and try to not take over, but try to fight Superfly. They end up teaming up with the Turtles, and they push them into the river along with the machine that was supposed to turn all the animals into mutants. And you get your like calm before the storm right there.
Yeah. I do think I did laugh in the movie when like Wingnut and stuff were like, yeah, I wasn't really feeling like murdering everyone personally. And stuff.
Right.
I thought that was funny, but at the same time, I did feel like the change happened super fast. Like these guys were supposed to have grown up with Superfly their whole life, and then like in an instant they're like, yeah, kill him. And it's like, that changed a little bit. It was funny, but I think it's just like everything in this movie, it's a breakneck pace, and it doesn't really give you a lot of time to process what just happened. It's just like 1 second they're like, yeah, I don't want to murder people. The next second he's a blue whale. So it's like, like it just moves so fast. And I think what Splinter comes in at that point, I believe he's the last one to push, and that puts Superfly over the edge. I think.
Oh, holy shit. We skipped a lot of the... When does the Utrom thing happen?
Yeah, we skipped the whole Utrom thing. Never mind, because that's how April comes back to them. They think April left them, but she didn't. She actually went to get Splinter, whereas like they think she abandoned them because they got involved with the wrong crowd or something.
That's what happened. Yeah, because they end up getting so before the mutant stuff, they end up getting. I might have to re-edit all this. They end up getting.
That's fine.
What happens? They get beat up and getting taken over by the Utroms? How do they get captured by the Utroms? I can't even remember.
I don't remember, honestly. I don't remember, actually. But they do end up, being in the custody of the Utroms. And the Utroms are obsessed with making super mutants, what they call super weapons, which, again, like I thought they were actually going to be the good guys, and Superfly would be the one who wanted to make super mutants. But this movie, one thing I appreciate so much about this movie is so many franchise films now, the whole movie is just a bunch of fucking references. It's just a bunch of obnoxious little Easter eggs. Like, oh, I know that. This movie takes it very easy with those. There's some stuff in the first fight scene. We get a second of the ninja rap from Secret of the Ooze and stuff. But my favorite one that blew my fucking mind, when Cynthia Utrom is talking about the super mutants, she has a little hologram that shows examples. One of them is fucking Scaletail from the original toy line.
I don't know if I saw that.
He's like because it shows this King Cobra guy with one arm and then 3 snakes for an arm. And I was like, that is a fucking deep cut. Scaletail, like
good catch. I didn't even notice that.
That fucking blew my mind, that Scaletail was. I couldn't tell what I was looking at the other ones. I'm like, it's one of those needle nose or something, but Scaletail showed up. That blew my fucking mind that Scaletail was referenced in this movie.
Yeah, so I know the Utroms end up capturing them, and again, we still don't know the Utroms have fucking brains in their belly or anything. Yeah. They're just basically seem like this evil organization. At one point, we get a T, and it's a TGRI.
Yeah.
Clip somewhere. So I don't know if the Utroms are TGRI. I don't know if it is the factory. I can't remember how that all lined up in there, but I know that happens at one point. So I don't know if they are synonymous with each other, but basically they need to get the ooze or whatever out of the turtles to make more mutants. So they end up using their Milkmaster 3000 machine, which is the whole running gag. Splinter's like, they're going to milk you if they catch you. They're going to milk you. They're going to milk you. And they end up getting milk for this ooze. So basically, like, they want their ooze. I don't know if the ooze is actually their blood, so that way they can make mutants of their own as well.
Yeah, which honestly, they milk a lot of ooze out of them, especially poor Mikey. Like, Mike, by the time they're all getting oozed, Mike has been milked. Mike has been being milked for like minutes then. It's like, that thing should be dead.
Right?
But it's actually similar, though, that happened in the first Michael Bay film, though, where the character Eric Sachs like got them and he started milking them, actually. So it's like, I didn't think about it until now that we're talking about the movie. There's a lot of parallels to the Michael Bay one, actually, in here. But
yeah, funny, because I saw a lot of parallels to the 2007 movie when I was watching it. I feel like.
Yeah? I don't see as many parallels to that, except that they're both the feature films that are animated. And yeah, the body builds are a little similar. But I think like some of the story beats, I'm surprised they did a lot of this. I guess the Bay comparisons shocked me a little more because that was so widely panned. I would not expect someone to do the Michael Bay like the story beats again, because like people crapped on those movies very hard. But yeah, that's when April finally brings Splinter, and Splinter has his action scene where he beats the crap out of all the Utroms and saves the turtles. And that's when they realized that like April was on their side the whole time. Like she never turned her back on them and stuff. And that like you can trust humans. And that's when Splinter learns that you can trust humans. And that's where then after that they go to the bad guys hideout. And then
so this is the scene before that. So the one thing though, this is probably my second favorite scene of the movie, is when you're never sure about Splinter throughout this whole movie. You're never really sure, but this is where he gets his big action moment. And this is where I realized people were actually getting killed. The first guy that rolls up on Splinter, he grabs that rod, jams it through his skull, and he drops. Then I'm like, people are dying in this movie. Like I didn't realize Baxter was dead until that happened. And I'm like, oh, people aren't just getting knocked out. Without a doubt, Splinter just jammed that bar through that guy's head, and he is fucking dead. And then Splinter just goes on a rampage after that and wrecks everybody.
I think, though, so the thing is, it's weird because this movie, again, it doesn't say that the potential Utroms are Utroms. So it seems like they might have told Paramount that, like, these are just robots. So he's not technically killing them. So that's why Superfly can kill them all at the beginning of the movie, and Splinter can kill them all now, because as long as they're not killing the brain in the middle, they're technically not dying. But that's not conveyed in the final film. So it seems weird.
So this has also got my brain spinning. So did they kill any of the guys in the mechanic shop?
I don't think so. They knocked them out.
Okay, did they just knock them out? Okay, yeah, because now that you're saying that, maybe everybody that does actually get killed is a Utrom. I didn't even think about that before, but you might be right there.
Well, except for Baxter, but Baxter, that's like a story-driven death. That's like Mufasa.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, he goes crazy. And I do like also, because Splinter's always hated humans and had no forgiveness for them, Superfly picks up on that. And he starts trying to use that to his advantage. He tries to, when all his friends are turning on him, he tries to appeal to Splinter. Like, I know you hate humans and everything. And we almost think he's getting into Splinter's head, but then Splinter is the one who helps them all knock him off finally. And yeah, then he falls into the river. They say he kind of fuses with whatever animals he touches. So what the fuck was a blue whale doing in the harbor of Manhattan? Like, what the hell was that doing there?
You never know, man. That's why I fucking hate the ocean. You never know what is lurking out there, dude.
So he comes out as a whale, and he stomps through the Bronx Zoo, and he ends up just fusing with like every animal. He has like a giraffe on his face, and he has like an elephant. It looks so gross because the elephant's head's like fused with the giraffe's head and everything, and it's like. He goes on a whole thing where he's like, I got like horses for legs and stuff. And like, he just thinks it's awesome, even though he looks fucking disgusting and he's going to turn into a giant monster. He's loving it. He's like, I'm unstoppable now. And this is what starts like the final act of the movie.
Yeah. So he's pretty much from there on, he's pretty much just one-liners when they cut to him from there. Like he'll just shout something out as he's rampaging through the city.
Yeah.
But this was, again, like that was clearly that original monster from that original shot that was floating in the background. And I feel like it was just a whale looking creature back then. Am I wrong? Is that what it was?
It had other sea creatures on it. It had like jellyfish on its arm and stuff, but it didn't have like zoo animals on it.
So without a doubt, I feel like that was either they sent that out as a tease and they're like, okay, we don't really want to spoil, but we just want to show stuff, or they really did just take a ton of feedback from that and work things from there.
I think it's probably like they came up with the final act early on. Like they're like, we want a giant monster at the end of the movie. we want like a Mega Mutant basically at the end of the movie. And they were probably just drawing a bunch of different ideas for Mega Mutants. And like at one point in development, that might have been their favorite, was just the sea creature one. But then as they were working in Superfly, which again, in early versions, it might have just been Baxter Stockman and he made that whale thing. But they might have ended up fusing the two villain designs into one and then kind of like working from there.
Because I feel like he still has the Baxter hair elements when he's the whale, doesn't he? Like he still has a lot of things, that make him look like he was the Fly before. But I feel like it was a very like almost generic ending. Like it feels like it's essentially the end of every single Power Rangers episode where they're fighting the villain and then he just blows up. But the twist on it was earlier when they were at the high school, they're all like noticing all these cool things that they'd want to be into. Like Michelangelo's like, there's an improv club. I would love to be in that. And Donatello sees like an anime club or something and like something for Attack on Titan, which at the time I'm like, oh, that's a random cool anime. Like, and again, like this appeals to me. Like I 100% got that reference. And then when it comes back to it at the end, they're like, it's just like Attack on Titan. We just got to attack the back of its neck and we kill it. And it was exactly like Attack on Titan. Like that's all they had to do. So that seems like it was also just very rushed at the end. I feel like the end scene was probably very, very long and they ended up chopping it down and making it the most basic version they could possibly make it.
Yeah, I definitely felt it. It felt very rushed. One thing, this is just like a silly nitpick, like a laws of physics, I guess, a nitpick for the movie. But so they have this canister that de-evolves, and that's what they're trying to use on Superfly to de-evolve him. They have a bunch of these canisters actually, but they have the solid canister in the plastic bag that they're all throwing around and stuff. And the turtles, are touching it, and everyone's touching it. All these mutants are touching it, and it doesn't de-evolve them. They don't break it or anything. They throw it in the canister in his blowhole, and somehow that demutates. Or I'm saying de-evolve, mutate, demutates everything about him. But it's like it's still in the canister though. It didn't like open. So we've already established that when it's in the canister, it doesn't affect mutants. So it's weird that just dropping that in there without breaking it open first, it works, and it just like demutates him.
I'm assuming the pressure of the blowhole probably like crushed it or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah. I will say though, even though like you get some good one-liners here and there, when he first mutates, it's funny. I still feel like we didn't get to know Superfly enough before he mutated, and there is a bit of a disconnect where even though it's that character and he mutated into him, and he still sounds like him and everything. It does kind of feel like a different villain, and it feels like the old Superfly is gone. And like I said, I just wish we got a few more scenes with him because I really liked Superfly. And I feel like once you get to the kaiju part, he's just a rampaging monster in the background. He's not really like a character anymore. And I feel like they wasted Superfly a little bit. Like they had a great villain and they didn't do enough with him. Maybe.
All right. So in the post-credit scene, did you notice when the Utrom lady, is it Cindy Utrom, whatever she is? She had it was in that chamber. So I feel like there's a good chance Superfly is going to come back.
I think so too. I think at least in the series, probably not in the next movie, but probably in the series, he'll probably come back. I do really think that at that time when like the third act is happening and the big Superfly is happening, that's really the point where it kind of hit me. The movie was moving too fast. I'm kind of like, how did we end up here? It's like kind of how I felt there. Like so much had happened so fast. We didn't really get enough time to marinate in a lot of it. And it definitely was one of those checklist movies when you're watching it, you're just going down the checklist, waiting for everything you saw in the trailers to show up. And it breezes through that checklist. And because at some point you're like, okay, Superfly's gonna mutate into a giant thing. They already showed that off in the trailers, so you're just waiting for that to happen. It happens way sooner than I thought it was going to happen and stuff. And I will say that there aren't that many surprises. If you were following this movie and you watched every trailer, you basically know what's coming every second of this movie.
So I feel like as far as the plot is concerned, yes. But at the same time, like I said, it still ended up being a much better movie than I thought it was going to be. And I feel like that's where like playing movies a little bit closer to the chest like does a lot. Like I know we were given a lot of teases of like it's going to focus on the teenage aspect and all that jazz, but like I said, I the plot was very predictable once it got going. You knew it was going to end up with the giant kaiju thing at the end. As far as like turtle stories go, like I feel like this was just a better flowing story than like 2007 or the Michael Bay movies were. Even though like it was a little predictable, it still just, to me, it just seems like a better movie all the way through.
I would say, comparing it to the 2007 movie, because apparently that's what everyone's doing, I would say as a representation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as a franchise and as something that older audiences, I guess, can enjoy, I think the 2007 movie's superior. But I think as being like just a fun, silly, big, bombastic family entertainment movie, this movie is going to be the crowd pleaser. I think this one's going to go over a lot better with most audiences than the 2007 one did. 2007 was like, if you aren't a Turtles fan and you watch that movie, you probably won't give a shit about it. Whereas this, I think anyone can probably get into it. But I would say personally, I probably think 2007 is a better movie. They both have their flaws, but I don't know. The first time I watched 2007, though, I hated it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just grown on me more over time, I guess. But I do think it even though it has the whole thing with the cryptids that could have been cut out, and even though I did say there was a lot of plot lines they didn't need, I think it is a bit more focused on the things that matter in that story than this movie is. I think this movie, again, like the cryptids are just stupid grunting monsters, whereas the mutants are meant to actually be characters, and they're almost as insignificant as the cryptids were. So I don't know. This movie just feels like, again, like it was being reworked up until the end. Like it was rushed. Like it was like it's a Frankenstein monster of a movie. Like they're like half of this movie was not made, and it feels like they were changing it all the way up until the end, even to the point where I think the whole Baxter thing was different. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's mediocre, a little. It's above average, but it's not that far above average for me. For me, it's a pretty mediocre movie. It's an enjoyable but not great movie, in my opinion.
So, if I'm looking at it as a movie, I think it's better than like if I was looking at it as a Turtles movie, because I can understand what you're saying by where I can see why a lot more Turtles fans would like 2007 a lot better. But if I were just looking at them unbiasedly as two movies, like I'm going to watch Mutant Mayhem again without a doubt. I don't know if I'll ever watch the 2007 movie again, honestly, because like so people the thing that people like about that movie, like it's like the story of after when they're teenagers and what's happening next, but it's like, do I want to watch the Turtles file their fucking taxes? Like, is this what I want out of Turtles? No, it's not. Like, I want them to be fun and goofy, and that's what this movie was like the whole way through. Like, again, I had fun, but in no way does it rewrite Turtles for me. This is not now my definitive version of the Turtles, you know what I mean? Like, it's just... Yeah. It's just a fun story, and I had a great time watching it. And I guess the last thing plot-wise to touch on is...
There's a couple things, yeah.
Yeah, a thing that we called is that eventually, like, they are going to end up winning over New York City, and they're going to end up in high school. And I feel like that's probably where the series is going to go into, is like their everyday adventures in high school. I don't think the Foot's going to get introduced until the second movie.
Probably. It's probably going to be like a mutant high kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess this ties into that, because I have a concern about something when you consider a certain story aspect that's kind of weird. I don't think anyone else is, as far as I can tell, no one else has brought this up. But before we get into that, we have to mention that Splinter gets a girlfriend in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Splinter. This is the weirdest pairing ever. It feels like when a kid is playing with toys and they just grab two random ones, or like they get married and move to the farm or something. And it's like, it's Scumbug. I didn't even realize Scumbug was female until like halfway through after they introduced Scumbug.
So hold on. Okay, so here's also what I don't remember. Does it ever say Scumbug is a female? Does it ever actually say that anywhere in the movie?
At one point, April's like talking to all the mutants, and she says like people need to understand there's nothing wrong with like a warthog and a crocodile, a bat, and a cockroach lady. She specifically says only the gender of Scumbug. And then Splinter says, I think she's very attractive. So I guess like,
okay,
Scumbug,
so he does say that, because that's never even really, I was just so taken back that like any type of like gay insinuation like never even crossed my mind, just because I was just so blown away the Splinter was making out with this cockroach. Like,
honestly, when they made out, it was beyond my control. I just audibly just went ew in the theater. Like it just came out of me. Like I didn't even mean to do it. I was just like ew when I saw that. It was so gross.
See that guy's balls? Yeah, they were weird looking.
That was gross. Scumbug is disgusting in this movie, especially like her stomach. It's all like white and lumpy. It's so gross looking.
Yeah, because that's the other thing with Scumbug. Like, Scumbug can't talk; it's inaudible. Like, you can't really see it as anything. So, in the promotional thing, Scumbug is marketed as Scumbug as himself. The director says that was never true, but this is another reason why I think there was so many changes made to where nobody really even knew really what was going on until the movie came out.
I think so. I think they were still reworking. I don't think they probably didn't even have the story of Splinter hooking up with Scumbug yet when they made that poster. And Scumbug, like it just looks like a big disgusting cockroach. You could call it whatever you want. It did have eyelashes though. I think they did give it eyelashes.
Okay.
But so the thing that weirds me out, that was like Splinter's an old man. These mutants were all born the night the Turtles were born. Scumbug's 15. So Splinter's dating a 15-year-old in this movie.
So, see, that's the thing, man. People are just so blown away that you don't even freaking pull the... I don't even know if you can say this word without getting demonetized or anything or taken off YouTube, so I won't. But yeah like, that's not even thought about. You're probably the first person that's actually even thought about that.
Because that's weird, because the other mutants, they come off so much older. Like they come off like these like older, more intimidating, more experienced mutants, but they're all, except for Superfly, who was around like a week longer than the other ones, a month longer than the other ones. Aside from that, they're all 15 years old. So like they were fetuses in the canisters when the Utroms broke into Baxter's lab. So like the whole cast is 15. So yeah, it's weird. I don't know if
I guess I never really thought about that, because Splinter was like an old rat, right?
He even describes that. He's like, you became babies because you were baby turtles. I became an adult because I was an older rat. He even says that like in the movie.
Okay, so when it shows the mutants when they're like in their like embryonic state, are they just small, or are they actually like... I guess I never really thought about that. Yeah.
Even if they are babies, they're like 16 at most. so it's that's why
but now, I mean, Splinter, we might have to call the cops on you, bro.
And that's so weird too, because it's like the Turtles all go to high school at the end of the movie. Like they take off their masks, they get dressed in regular clothes, which they've been collecting throughout the movie, and they go to high school. But the other mutants just stay at home, like in the sewer. It's like, you're all fucking teenagers. Get to school. What the hell are you doing?
They don't want to learn.
And I did think it was weird that they all move into the Turtles' house. Like, when they said you could come live in the sewers with us, I was thinking like the 87 show where like Mondo Gecko moves into the tunnel down the hall from them, like in the sewers. Not like they're literally all living in the turtle den.
Right.
It's like, you guys aren't getting a fucking ounce of sleep ever again. Like, your life is just insanity now. And and then the turtles go to prom.
Right.
And I thought it was a little mean the way April treats Leo. She like agrees to go to prom. Then when they're dancing, she's like, "Oh, we're just friends, right?" It's like, "Oh, damn! Like you just friend zoned him at prom. That's fucked up. Like that was a little harsh." But then we get the Shredder, and we get barely any more than what I just said because you see his shoulder and the back of his helmet, and that's it.
See a lot of blades though. I like that.
Yeah, he looks badass from what we can see. And he looks like, I don't know until the movie comes out, but he looks like we are taking him very seriously.
Yes.
Like
that's the thing. Exactly. It was a very like dark, brooding scene. And that's again what I like, because when Superfly was on screen, he felt serious and heavy. And I feel like Shredder is going to be even more so of that.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like in the next iteration, it might be able to take a little bit more serious. I mean, I don't even know if serious is the right word, but like I said, I know this was like kiddie and goofy, but at the same time, it could feel heavy when it wanted to. It could feel emotional when it wanted to. And I'm excited to see what they do with this universe. It's definitely not one that I'm just like, okay, this is one and done. Again, it's not like it's my new definitive Turtles universe, but I'm excited to see what these next series of TV shows or movie is going to be like.
Yeah, like I said, for me it was pretty average for me. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But I am interested to see where they go with it. I am interested to see like what they do with all these characters they introduced. I'm interested to see if it does get a little more serious, a little edgier, like maybe it grows up with its fan base kind of. Kind of like the Harry Potter movies did, they started off very like whimsical and cute, and then they started getting darker and darker and darker. I kind of hope they do that a little bit, not too much. You don't have to like make it like freaking like the Batman or something. It doesn't have to be like super grimdark, but I do think like we can ease up on the comedy a little bit in the sequel because it worked most of it. I was surprised how good a lot of the comedy was. But a lot of animated movies now fall back on comedy as a crutch, and they just don't let emotional moments linger. They don't let kids feel anything. It's like, oh, the kid might be feeling too much. Throwing a joke, and it seems like a distraction, like a Band-Aid or something. And I hope they don't belittle things that could have emotional impact with stuff like that. But again, this isn't being made for me, so.
All right, well, and see, the thing is, it's being made for everybody, but it 100% think this has to be targeted at kids. To keep something alive forever, you have to keep capturing a new audience, and eventually we're all fucking dead. Like, we cannot keep this going forever. So if you want your franchise to live on, unfortunately it is going to have to make some changes to be a little bit more directed to the next generation. And I feel like what they're going to do is the series is going to be a little bit more lighthearted. And then I think the second movie, they're going to bring in Shredder, and it's going to be a little bit heavier. I feel like that's probably how they're going to play it. But again, you can't get too far to where you get so heavy that you're alienating your light-based fans, which are the kids. So it'll be interesting to see how they play the series and a movie all in the same universe.
It definitely will. I think as of right now, that balancing act reminds me most of Rise of the TMNT. I think the style of humor is very similar to Rise. The style of action is very similar to Rise. Even the color scheme with all the dark purple and everything is very similar to Rise. It kind of feels like that's the most comparable version of the Turtles to what we're going to get out of this world, I think, because Rise had its moments later on with the Shredder and stuff, and the movie they made for Netflix and stuff. They had their like sagas where it would get, not serious. They're still peppering jokes in there all the time. But like even the 2012 series did that a lot, where you get your more, like heavy moments, but they sprinkle in jokes to kind of make it like not too heavy for kids. And sometimes in those shows, especially in Rise, I think the jokes can feel forced, and I don't find them that funny. Again, kids probably find them funny. They're not being told for 37-year-old men. But I think sometimes they do really feel like a crutch. I think that's something that a lot of modern media did. The MCU got carried away with that after a while, just like joke after joke. You can't have an emotional scene between two characters without Drax popping up and saying some dumb shit or something. So I think a lot of modern movies that aren't comedies are just becoming comedies out of like, I don't know. It almost feels like they're afraid to be themselves. Like they're afraid of looking dorky if they take themselves too seriously. So we have to pad it out with jokes to make it digestible for non-fans or something. And I think that does rob some movies of potential that they could have. But that's just me.
So have you seen that the showrunner of Rise, he's officially said this, that the show is on pause. It's not done.
Yeah, I heard that. I mean, it has a very dedicated cult fan base, but a cult fan base can't really make a show come back. I think personally, I know people love Rise. I've said I think Rise was good. I think it would be a mistake to bring it back at this point because you just brought the 87 one back on TV. So you have that, on online and on TV now. You're trying to create this whole new version of the Turtles, which is like very different from the traditional world. I think it would be really confusing to then put out another show that is very different called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at this point, especially since it's a show that didn't perform well at all originally. Like it has its fans, but most people skip that show. I think honestly it would be a mistake. And I in all honesty, I don't think it's going to happen. It's kind of like when the Teen Titans Go movie came out and they were like, hey, if this movie makes enough money, we're going to make the final season to the original Teen Titans. And where the hell's that? Because that movie made a lot of money. And so I'll say, I think season 3 of Rise will come out when season 5 of Teen Titans comes out. So
Yeah.
Never is what I think. I think personally, maybe it will, but I think never.
At this point, I don't think it will. Because again, like we talked about this movie only making $50 million, but it was made on an $80 million budget on top of marketing, probably like 100,000, 120,000. But the merchandise is really what drives something like Turtles as well. So I think I think the movie will become profitable once it goes to streaming and stuff like that. But without a doubt, they're moving fucking merchandise on this movie. Like it is everywhere. This merchandise is everywhere. And I feel like that's really what's king. Like the Rise toy line did not do well. The first wave got clearance. I got the original Turtles for $5 a piece. Like that's death from the start for a toy line. Yeah. And I think they do factor that in. I feel like Turtles isn't just the media that they're producing, it's everything. Like Turtles is the whole shebang. It's clothes, toys, food. That's what Turtles is. When they can push that, I feel like that's success for Turtles. And like I said, I know the number seems low, but to me, it just seems like it's as popular as it's ever been or as it ever will be. Yeah,
I think so. I think we probably will get a second movie. We probably will get the show. I don't know if we're going to get all 2 seasons. If it continues on where it gets less and less popular, the Mutant Mayhem world, I think they might cancel the show prematurely. Netflix, not just Netflix, but all streaming services love canceling shows. So I think I guess it's a little worrisome how much this movie is underperforming. And but yeah, the merchandise is moving well. I see a lot of the section just keeps emptying out and then filling back up at my Targets and my Walmarts. And I guess we'll just have to see, because I think the series could actually end up saving the Mutant Mayhem verse and get kids really into it if it's an ongoing thing they can watch at home whenever they want. But I guess the last thing we'll say is, did you go in on that collector's cup? Oh, here it comes.
I had to get it.
Did you get the RAF one? Yeah.
Yes. It was $80. I still would have got this fucker. There was nothing stopping me from getting this thing.
So you couldn't get the cup just on its own, at least at the theater I went to. They said you had to get the popcorn bucket, that right there. Yeah. Yep. And which came with a mask, like a turtle headband mask. And it came with the cup, which had a toy on top. And the whole thing was like $30, which...
That's what it was at mine too.
for a bunch of collector stuff, that's not that bad, but I just wasn't willing to pay $30. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention also when I saw it, even though the website didn't say anything about this, I even confirmed it with the guy. I showed him like my receipt and everything. Somehow it ended up being a 3D showing that I saw. So I saw the movie in 3D.
Oh, fuck. How was that?
It didn't really even need to be in 3D. I didn't really even notice. Like, it just looks like everything's on a different layer, but there wasn't really stuff like popping out of the screen at you or anything.
Yeah. It's always my nightmare though, man, dude. After a while, I get a headache if I try to watch a movie in 3D. I don't ever even attempt it anymore.
The weird thing is, though, the last time I accidentally ended up with a 3D ticket for a movie was Out of the Shadows, TMNT, really? Out of the Shadows. I don't know if this is just a running thing that when I see Turtles movies in theaters, I accidentally end up with 3D tickets. But the weird thing is they were the price of a normal ticket. They weren't like 3D price. I don't know how the hell that happened. But watching a 3D movie for me fucking sucks because I need these glasses.
Yeah.
And then you got to put the other glasses on top. Plus it like darkens everything a little bit. So it's like probably scenes like where I was saying it was too dark to see details on characters. If I didn't have the dumb 3D glasses on, it probably would have been easier.
Right. That probably actually did make a difference.
Yeah. So yeah. Mutant Mayhem for me. I don't know. 5 out of 10.
Letter grade. What do you got for letter grade?
Letter. I'll do letter grade. C, maybe a C. Maybe
that
C,
would be for me.
Maybe C or maybe C plus. I don't know. Probably C. Probably just a C. I'd say I'd put it a little below the Mario movie, which I also thought was not like. I liked the Mario movie. I had a ton of fun watching it, but I wouldn't call it like master filmmaking or anything. Like it's just a love letter to video game fans. So I would say that was like probably a C plus, and I'd probably say this is like a C. Maybe it's like a B minus, but I'd say like C plus for this and Mario.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed them both. I definitely think I like Turtles better just based off of pure nostalgia and like hype in the moment. But yeah, they're both solid movies for me. Like this has honestly been probably one of the best years of movies. Also, I don't know if you've seen Guardians 3, but that was fucking amazing. So easily the best Marvel movie since Endgame. So
that's not too hard to do though, because they've been putting out some
trash, dude. It's not thrilled at all where the MCU is right now. Yeah. Well, topic for another day, but yes, regardless, it's been a decent year of movies, which is a bummer because we're probably going to head into a drought of no movies with the writer strike. So yeah,
and the Screen Actors Guild strike. Yeah. I felt like mostly it's been a mediocre. I feel like everything is like my standards have been lowered because Hollywood has been just dumping on shit. Like they've been making some bad movies in recent years, and ever since the pandemic, it just seems like the quality of films have gone down. So my expectations are lower. Every now and then they're blown out of the water like Top Gun. But for the most part, I think most movies I see, when they're mediocre, I celebrate them now. Whereas in the past, I would have been like, and just walked on. But now it's like if a movie's mediocre, I'm like, oh, this is great. This is more like this, please.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I almost want to go see Barbie while it's still in theaters because it's so hype right now. So that's where we're at in the world.
It's hyped as hell. I had no interest in seeing Barbie personally. Like way back when they first announced it's gonna be a Barbie movie, I'm like, I don't give a shit. But people are hyping it hard. So I don't know.
And again, man, I just like going to the movies. Like, and that's what sucks is like there's just not enough stuff to draw me to the movies anymore. So if I get anything, I will give it a little bit of a grain of salt just because I'm excited to go to the movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna want to see some horror movies this October, but there's some sacrilegious shit coming out. They're remaking The Exorcist, which that goes against everything I stand for. That is a masterpiece film. You don't remake that. And then the director of the original Exorcist just died this past week to like rub salt in the wound. So it's like
spit right on his grave.
Leave it alone, dude. Don't remake what is still by some people considered the greatest horror movie of all time. But anyway, I don't think it's the greatest, but you know, I respect anyone who says that. But we're not getting into horror. So, yeah. I guess one last thing for news. One thing I have to say, there was a bunch of Street Fighter 6. They added a bunch of Turtle stuff today when we're recording this, and it's cool. They look at the old action figure stuff. But I watched when they put season 1 of the 87 show on YouTube. The one thing that they edit out all like the fade outs to commercials and stuff, so it's a little more brisk than the original pacing was. The one thing that startled me though is the opening song was not the same. It's like a new band covering it.
That must be a rights thing. That sucks.
Yeah, they try to make it sound as much like the original, but the original guy had that voice like Raphael is cool, but like he doesn't sound like that in this one. It's someone else, and like even the turtle voices when Mikey screams "party," it's different than how he originally does, and that took me out a little bit. That felt like, oh, I'm watching a hack job. What else did they change? But no, it's cool that it's on there. So if anyone wants to, you can watch the first 5 episodes of the original show on YouTube for free. So
we'll be back here. You'll be back in 2 weeks with a solo episode, and then
yes,
you got a topic figured out yet?
I'm debating between 2 of them. I'm not going to say either one until we turn off the mics, but until we turn off the recording. I mean, but yeah, I'm debating between 2 of them. I'll have to come up. Maybe I'll end up with something completely different, but I'm going between 2.
All right. Oh yeah. Well, I'm interested to hear that. So we're going to get off here so I can figure that out and feed my dog. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys.
Yeah. Peace.
Take it easy. Peace.